Okay. Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to the December 7th, 2011 Town Council Business Meeting, and I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, couple of notations. First of all, we do not have a recording secretary this evening, so please speak into your microphone so we can get it off the DVD. Hello.
He's working.
Can you hear me now? No. How about now?
Hello.
Okay.
Speak up.
I'll do the best I can so you can hear me. For the record, Councilor Bergeron is out of state, and Councilor Zink is attending a ZBA meeting for his business that he had to attend. He's going to attempt to be here, but I do not expect him for at least a half an hour. So with that, oops. Okay, can you hear it now? Okay, bear with me while I adjust this. Is everything still good? How about now?
Yeah, it's good.
Okay. All right. Before I open the public forum, I'd just like to read a statement that I've prepared. And I'm not sure if you were fortunate enough to grab one of the spreadsheets that were available as you entered. Hopefully you did. I'm not going to actually refer to it, but it's just something that I think may be interesting reading for some of you. Basically, in an effort to try to answer some of the questions that I've received over the past 2 weeks, I'd like to make the following statements. Was the council aware of the tax rate and keeping it from the taxpayers? The answer is no. I was first made aware of it 5 days before it was made public. We had everyone go over the numbers to double check and triple check before asking DRA for the official rate. Once the official rate was given, the town administrator made a short presentation on Channel 13 and called the Exeter newsletter in an attempt to get the information out to the public. How could this happen? On the town side, someone referred to this as the perfect storm recently. That is a fair assessment. Back in early summer, the council had the auditors come in for the usual recap of the recent audit. At that time, we were told by the auditors that it would be unwise to use any of the fund balance to buy down the tax rate, as we have in at least the 6 years that I've been on the council. Our tax rate has been kept artificially low from year to year through the use of this fund. The auditors recommended a minimum of 1 month or 8% of the operating budget, with ideally a 2 month or 16%. Over the past 5 years, the town has used from $490,000 up to $1.3 million, which was used last year to buy down the tax rate. Based on the assumption that $745,000 equals $1 on the tax rate, 1.3 would equal $1.74. To take it a little further, we also received $818,687 less from the state, which equals $1.09 on the tax rate. Should the council, town administrator, and finance department better anticipated the impact? The short answer is yes. In the past 6 months, the council has looked for ways to save money. We denied the purchase of a new vehicle, thus reducing the fleet by that number. We did not support using money from the municipal transportation fund to repave a road in town. We have suggested a $100,000 cut in the administrative part of the budget, which in reality eliminates one full-time position. We have suggested to the administrator to try outsourcing vehicle repair and maintenance, which also decreased the town employee number by 1. The council does not spend money from CIP without first holding a public hearing on the expenditures. We have also eliminated pay increases for town employees for fiscal years 12 and 13. Last year's operating budget for the town of Newmarket was $9,694,110. This year, the town council has presented a budget to the budget committee of $9,225,224, a difference of $423,886, which is a 4% reduction, 4.3% reduction overall. Town council continually seeks input from the residents. With that, I'll open the public comment section. Yes, Mr. Gaster.
Thanks. I just, this has got nothing to do with the tax rate or anything like that, although it probably does have some, in some way, it could be inferred that way. My question is, I've been taking care of the town clock for the last 26 years. This has got to do with the town clock and the vote that was apparently taken here at the town council chambers on November 2nd, although I can't find any record of that in the meeting, in the minutes, saying that David Graff, who has done the repair work on the town clock, is now going to be taking over duties, winding the town clock and maintaining the town clock. I got that information from the town administrator, Ed Winowski, on a Thursday morning, saying that you guys had voted in that, you know, I guess my services were no longer required, although I've been doing it for 26 years, and then I've been doing it since I was 10 years old. I just wanted to know what now I understand that I've been offered the job back again, keeper of the clock or winder of the clock, if I so desire. I do desire that job. I just don't know what both of us are going to be doing up there at the same time, taking care of the town clock. There's 2 people. You're going to be paying for my services, the stipend that I get, and which is $150 a month. I don't mind sharing that. I don't know what he's going to be getting. I just thought that the way I was given that information was inappropriate and unfair to me after 26 years of service, plus, you know, my family's been doing this for 2 generations. I mean, I would have assumed that you guys would have had a meeting and maybe asked me to come in and maybe discuss this before. Even Ed would, you know, have me come into the office with, and at least have the courtesy of telling me, you know, what your decisions are. And I just had to get that off my chest.
Mm-hmm. If I may respond, Mr. Gazda.
Yes, sir.
The council did take a vote on the maintenance of the clock from, is it Graff Brothers,
Yeah.
that did the...
David Graff.
David Graff, okay.
Kittery, yeah.
And basically, the agreement that we entered with them, to my knowledge, is to, A, maintain the clock for a year because there were so many new parts, moving parts, things of that nature that would probably need to be tweaked over the, you know, first year or so of operation.
Yeah.
So it was, I believe, the council's understanding that we were going to buy into a maintenance agreement with the anticipation, obviously, of you continuing to do the same winding and whatever it is that you have to do as far as the normal routine maintenance. But it was suggested when we received the final bills and everything, that they would continue, or that they would do a year maintenance, if I'm not mistaken, and councilors, if you if you think I'm not correct on this, please correct me, but it seems to be my memory that we voted strictly for a one-year maintenance agreement, in essence.
In addition to his regular, the contract read that he was to train somebody from the town.
Yes.
To maintain this clock after the overhaul was complete. That's part of the contract.
Right, and that's, you know, I guess my thoughts, and they were probably incorrect, was that, obviously, where you were the one that had been taking care of the clock.
Sure.
Over the years, that you would continue to do that after the training process. But, you know, that's my understanding. And Councilor Levy, is that incorrect, or?
No, I just want to know, when was that vote? Because I don't, was that before May, or was it?
No, that was not, that was recently. That may very well be in that November timeframe. If we had our laptops, you could probably bring it up tonight.
Well, it was not, I looked through the minutes, if you can, I brought it up at home on my computer. I mean, if you can bring it up on that way, I think, you know, I read all the things. I didn't say anything about a vote, and I was kind of wondering if this was just,
I'm pretty certain there was, if there wasn't a vote, there was certainly a consensus, because I'm not sure
Yeah.
what the dollar value was of it, if it actually required a vote.
I remember it came up at the budget meeting a little bit, but I don't.
$600.
It was, yeah, so, but it was never the intent of the council to leave you out of this,
okay.
at least from the people that I believe are sitting up here right now. It was never the intent of the council to do that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I got that information because I made a call to Jim Bergeron and to a couple of your other councilors about that, and based on that, Mr. Winowski said that since you made a couple of phone calls, that we would like to keep you on as the keeper of the clock. I mean, I've had the experience in maintaining that clock many years, so I don't think I really, you know, needed for him to say that was the reason why I was going to be kept on, because I made a couple of calls to my counselors, you know, with my concern about this.
Yeah, I don't think that was
maybe
ever
that's not what
the-
he was.
the thought of the council. I
Really
really do
wanted me
not
to-
believe that, so.
Okay, so I am interested in maintaining that clock, but I cannot be. I can't coordinate with Mr. Graff, who lives in Kittery, when he's going to be up there, because his times change. I've been trying to reach him for the last 2 weeks about this, and I just
I
want to know
will
what
make
my
s-
responsibilities are going to be now.
I will make certain that he contacts you. How's that?
Okay, that'd
And
be
you
good.
work out a schedule, and if you can't work out a schedule, please let me know.
Okay, all right, that would be great, because I think maybe 2 weeks of going with him up there, he can show me everything that he's done to that clock. I've been up there, and I followed it through the whole summer, and I know what he's done to the clock, and I know what changes he's made. All he has to do is show me any minor things that I might, you know, not know that he may have added to the maintenance of that clock that I need to know. And I think within 2 weeks, then I could be taken over, and he could, you know, if he, how are we going to maintain? How are we paying for his extra duties? Is that an additional expense to the town?
We were explained.
We had leftover funds on the appropriation to make the repair.
Right.
Do I? Can I ask him what he's going to be getting for doing that?
For the whole year, for the full maintenance agreement, I believe it was
$2,600.
$2,600. I was gonna say 25,
For
but
him to do the maintenance for a year, 2,600?
that is, because,
Yeah.
as I said, there's been a lot of new parts, and I'm sure they're gonna have to be tweaked over a period of time.
Yeah.
Councilor, Vice Chairman.
Bob, I would personally like to apologize to you for the way this was handled, because when we talked about this, I'm pretty sure that we were told that you would talk to before, and you were okay with this situation, so,
That's what Jim Bergeron told me. I was
yeah,
never
I-
informed of this.
and so I apologize for that.
I accept your apology, and I'm sorry that it has to come to
Absolutely.
came to this. And I was never informed of it until Ed called me. I mean, that,
Councilor Bentley?
If I could, Mr. Chairman, I also wrote a couple quick things. I've had in excess of 30 emails and some personal meetings and phone calls on budget the last couple weeks, and I wrote a few things too.
Can I just hold, if you want to talk about, you're talking tax rate? Can just take care of
Yep.
Mr. Gaza, and then we'll...
I'm fine with what you explained to me, and thank you, Eric, for what you said. I just thought it was done unprofessionally. And
As
and it could
chairman,
have
I
been,
apologize, Mr. Gaza.
and I mean, 26 years doing this job, could have called me in or something just to explain this. I'll work with Dave Graff. I was on the committee to hire Dave Graff to get him in here. Most people in town know that I've been taking care of the clock. Just wanted a clarification on what happened, and so that my conscience is free, and, that I know that you guys still have a vote. Is there still a vote of confidence in what I've been doing with the town clock?
Oh, certainly. I have no problem. I was up there with you.
Yeah.
I went up there one time before they fixed it.
Yeah.
I won't go up again.
All right. All right, well, thank you very much for your
Thank
time.
you, Mr. Gaza. Councilor Bentley, you had something you wanted to...
Yeah, a couple quick, I also wrote a few comments down in response to a lot of calls, emails, and meetings I had in light of the pretty disparaging article about a lot of us sitting up here. But this council's worked, I think, in the last 2 years that I've been on it, really hard at trying to be fiscally responsible. A week ago tonight, several of us were at an EPA meeting, fighting one of the biggest, most powerful agencies in the government for the taxpayers, for sewer users. We were told that, in fact, if it goes the way the EPA wants it, the normal user is $700 now, and will go to 21.
The rate will double.
Rate
It could almost triple.
Rate will triple if we do what EPA wants us to do. It'll double if what we're trying to get it from 8 milligrams instead of down to 3 milligrams. But several of us were there fighting for the taxpayers. I myself am not a sewer user, but that's what I'm supposed to do, is fight for all the taxpayers. The chairman already brought up, we didn't approve the town truck for the DPW, even though we were told by, some people that I certainly have confidence that they wouldn't be as efficient at times. They had to haul some brush in a van, they had to do some things that just weren't, had to use a bigger truck to haul trash, when a smaller one would have been, better on gas, but in the long run, we didn't feel it was something that we could do during the economic times. We looked at outsourcing the mechanic's job. Again, against the wish of some of the departments, talked to us and said, it's a great thing we have, and again, we thought it was a chance to, and we won't know till, a year trial probably, we thought it was a chance to save money there by outsourcing the mechanic's job. You're not paying benefits. We thought there were some benefits there. A couple of us voted down the dam study last year, 60 grand, that I thought was fruitless to do. You can do a study on what will happen if the dam isn't there. Just look at the pictures we took 2 years ago when we lowered the dam to look at it. And that's getting more attention now. Apparently, Mr. Phelps sent something to 4 of the councilors who didn't vote against it, and the 3 that voted against it didn't get anything sent to him, but luckily enough, one of the other councilors sent it to me. So 3 of us voted. We don't need to spend $60,000 on a dam removal study right now. It's not the most important thing for the town. Several of us, and I see a couple reps here tonight, and I'm glad they're here. Several of us got a hold of our reps and senators over the past year on the pension issue. I believe it's the same one that Mr. LeBranch was talking about, the money from that we didn't get from the state. Is that the pensions? $1.09 less per thousand would have helped us. Several of us contacted them and senators and said, this is how it hurts towns like us. This is a, you wrote a blank check. The money was there, the state, it was in the pension fund, and now it's not there. Sorry, you have to pony up, town. And also several of us got a hold of reps again, and there was a bill trying to get rid of registering cars, which is the second biggest moneymaker for this town, and the bill was going to let auto dealers register it, and a lot of those monies would leave this town. And again, several of us made calls to reps and senators and said, you need to keep it in the towns. This is really going to hurt the town. So I just want to have a few things out there. That there's a lot of things happening behind the scene, and there's many, many more that other people could bring up, that I could bring up other things. And lastly, we're all homeowners and taxpayers too. So mine went up just like everyone else's. So just wanted to make that known. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Deedley?
I appreciate the work you did preparing for tonight's meeting. You have answered a lot of the questions. But I think the one question that still doesn't sit satisfactorily with some of us is the no warning. A lot of this, excuse me, a little laryngitis. A lot of this has been brewing well since last spring. And the question I asked at the Budget Committee and the question that I asked at the school board was, when did you know that there was going to be this additional bump beyond what we thought we were approving at last year's town meetings? Because at last year's town meetings, we as voters thought we were approving something in the vicinity of $2. And the answer that I got was from one that he was getting emails before he opened his tax bill, and the answer that I got from the other board was that they didn't have a clue until the tax bills came out. You've traced this back in part to the decision by the board not to use any of the reserve money, which would have been an early warning sign that you could have given the town when you made that decision. There was the uncertainty of the pension funds, the uncertainty of the state legislation, which on the school side was discussed in the early spring. Bottom line is that as a body of taxpayers, we got to the tax bill totally surprised, totally flabbergasted. And I'm not here to lay blame necessarily, but I'm here to ask you folks to go back into your systems. I was in your seat once, and we always asked before we went into town meeting time is, what's the overall tax rate going to be? And that included not just what we were spending, but it included reserves, it included overlays, it included state funding. And somewhere along the line, I get the impression that those questions either weren't asked or that information was asked in piecemeal and wasn't drawn together. And I'm not here to argue the point, but I'm here so that you folks at some point can figure out what went wrong. I appreciate you telling us it's not going to go wrong again, but you haven't told us why it went wrong in the first place. Again, I would thank you for the efforts you've made. I think it's been clear over the last week that all three groups have been conscious of trying to lower the tax rate and that you have gotten blindsided. But I think it's fair to say that you got to go farther. Last night, the other night, at the Budget Committee meeting, I heard the chief make an impassioned plea not to get rid of dispatch. I don't want to get rid of dispatch, but we've lost Nottingham, we've lost Stratham, we've lost another community that used to help subsidize that. I think regardless of the concerns, the chief's questions have to be asked of the towns that went to Rockingham. We have to have discussions with Rockingham about correcting the problems that would prevent us from going there and perhaps getting rid of our own dispatch, as much as I don't want to. Garbage collection in the string that has been sent out tonight with the Taxpayers Association. There's the suggestion that we do what Epping does, haul our own trash to the dump. We have a private collector in town. I use him. It's cheaper for me to use him than it is to pay the town for those orange bags. I get more in them. They don't break open as often. That's an option to the few of us that don't want to haul our trash to town. I think these things need to be looked at, not defended. And that's not to cast aspersions with anybody that wants to keep trash collection or wants to keep the dispatch. But we have to do business differently in this town. Some of those steps you've been taking, but I have to stress that I don't think a lot of us think that there are enough of those. We have to recoup what we've lost. Getting hit with a 20% extra whack over a 30-day period just is not manageable for most of us. And we're scrambling as you are scrambling. And this isn't going to go away. You talk about the sewer plant. The school is talking about a $53 million school building. They want to buy land at the coming town meeting, and then in the following year or two, they want to propose a $53 million school. If we're going to handle the sewer and we're going to handle the school, we have to lower our operating costs across the board if we're even going to think about doing that kind of stuff. Appreciate your time. I hope at some point along the line I found out exactly what went wrong where and who did what and how it's going to be fixed. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Deedley, if I can just respond. I hear your recommendations, and I really have to believe, I mean, I can't speak for everyone sitting up here, but I don't think that there's anything that's not on the table for discussion. All I ask is that, if we're going to do a change, you had mentioned, for example, the garbage pickup. If we're going to do away with that, I would ask that the voters do that on a warrant, so at least the voters have the opportunity to vote on something that large, because I don't think that the 7 of us really have the right to take that away from the community. But nothing is off the table.
Well, and I respect your opinion on that. It's as you know, it's been common practice for the school board and the town council over the years to put big items on the warrant as a separate warrant so that they can be thoroughly discussed. And I'm not telling you to arbitrarily do it, but I know it's going to be seriously debated. But I think those are the types of options that need to be passed on to the voters. If we as a group decide to keep something at X expense, at least we've done it knowingly. And again, that's the big problem here. We got a tax rate not knowing. And the demand that you've heard over the last week is we need to know. And I appreciate your frustration, because a lot of us sit at home, we watch this on television, we read a newspaper article here and there, we don't show up at the meetings. And then all of a sudden this blows up in your face. Been there, felt the wrath. That's why I'm not here yelling and screaming, and I hope nobody else yells and screams. But that doesn't diminish the need to rein in the tax rate, to lower the tax rate, so when the sewer comes, we can afford it, so when the school comes, to what extent it does come, we can afford it. And it's just, I guess it's our way of my way of thanking you for what you've done, but just asking you to do more, because we really need to head in that direction, okay?
Thank you, Mr. Deedley. Yes, Councilor.
I think there's like an elephant in the room, and if I may, our finance director passed away 2 weeks ago, Don Pennell, and I would venture to guess the last 12 to 18 months, the job wasn't done maybe that would have been done had he been 100% healthy, and that's a fact, that he was in this position and he was sick, and I'm not sure. I think when Councilor Branch talked about the perfect storm, there's a lot of things that happened. The loss of state aid, being told by the auditors not to do something we'd done for 5 years in a row. I thought, oh, that's great, we're going to do what we did last year. We're going to lessen the rate and use this money. Well, no, we're not. There's a lot of things that happen all at once, but I think that needs to be brought up. That, correct me if I'm wrong, was he here 40 hours a week the last year?
No.
Okay.
Why didn't you replace him?
Pardon me?
Why didn't you replace him?
There's laws about that. There's federal laws about replacing people that have any medical conditions. Absolutely.
He was dying?
Pardon me?
He was dying?
He passed away 2 weeks ago, I just said. There's federal laws about getting rid of anyone that have a medical condition.
Is there someone else from the public that would like to speak? Could you please state your name and address?
Kate Renard, 141 Grant Road, in Newmarket. I have a little prepared statement. It's probably only 5 minutes long. It won't take much of anybody's time. I would first like to commend Joan Laporto, who noticed the 39-cent tax error on our tax bills. And it did give us a little bit of a relief. Not much. Some people $100, $200, but it's still something. But it's way too little and way too late. My taxes just increased, and they're going to be over $1,200. We were given no notice, and we were expected to pay that bill by the end of the month or incur a 12% fee. It's not really fair. This increase has now put me over $9,000 a year to pay to the town of Newmarket for taxes. I'm not a lifelong resident of the town. I moved here in October of 1998, and at that time my taxes were around $2,000. So in 13 years they've gone up $7,000. My pay has not reached that particular level, and it's a struggle harder and harder to pay. My place of employment has freezed my wages for 2 years, and they're talking about a 3-year to make it a 5-year. So I ask you, where am I supposed to get that money? And obviously I'm not the only one here who feels that way, because this whole room is filled. I did an internet search on foreclosed properties on and around 03857, our zip code. There are 93 properties in the surrounding communities that are in bank foreclosure. In Newmarket, there are 19 in bank foreclosure. I did a search for properties sold near Grant Road in October and November. 5 properties sold. Out of those 5 properties, one was 156 Exeter Road, which sold for $224,000. The town has that property valued at $283,800. That's a difference of $58,800 that he was paying taxes on, and he didn't get that benefit when he sold his property. 1,104 Pecassack Street sold for $107,000. The town valued it at $139,900. That's a difference of $23,900. When is this going to end? What are our town officials thinking, increasing our taxes to such an extent in the midst of the worst economic recession since the Great Depression? Property values are down, but the town has them valued higher than we can even sell our properties for. We're not a rich town. The homeowners are trapped. We can't sell because of the economy, and who's going to buy it now with the tax rate the way you people have it? The most frightening thing about this tax increase to me and everyone probably in this room is it doesn't even take into consideration the $53 million for the new school you want to build. And you know that because when it's in new construction, for even a new house or a new school or any new construction at all, it's a money pit of epic proportions. One of the recent editorials in the Seacoast Online paper stated the tax increase was due to the 11 warrant school-related articles voted in May. Just because they were voted in doesn't mean they have to be instituted immediately. We all have to pick and choose what goods and services we buy for our family to purchase now and which ones can wait. Why can't the town do the same and wait on certain things? A few years back, the school board made a heartfelt plea for an elevator for the dignity of the handicapped students. It was voted in, however, we never got an elevator. I don't know why that was, and we don't even know where the money went. And at that time, there were no handicapped citizens' children even in our school system. So where does all this spending increasing taxes end? When does the taxpayer get a break? Why isn't the town trying to attract commercial business and unburden the private citizens? I haven't seen any big commercial entities in this town in the whole 13 years I've lived here. In any case, anyone who missed the television in one of the television board meetings, which I think was really reprehensible, was the $750,000 that was voted in for the fire and safety codes for the school. We were told in that meeting that all will be destroyed when the new school is built. Is that fiscally responsible to destroy $750,000 that you're going to put into an old school? Would any of you council members put that much into your homes only to destroy it? I think not. Yet you have no problem doing it with our money. So taxpayers, everybody in this room, we need to send a message to our town leaders that spending is out of control and the cost to live in Newmarket is now unbearable. If it's yes on warrant articles, that means tax rates rise. In May, I urge every citizen within the sound of my voice, if it's on TV and in this room, to vote straight no's down every line. Every warrant article, no matter what it is, no, no, no. Because if things keep going the way things are in Newmarket, we'll have no residents at all. And finally, this is just my opinion. There needs to be new people on these town councils. Ever since Al Dixon was in this town, the councils and committees, all you do is jump from board to board to board. Town Council Budget Committee, it's the good old boy network, and it's got to stop. Thank you.
The public? Please state your name and address.
My name is Adrienne Rubino, and I live at 71 Grant Road. You want to know how to save money? What the hell is the town clock? I've never heard of such a thing. And what's the matter with a battery-operated clock, if there is a clock? I don't even understand what that was all about. I've never seen a town clock. Is there a town clock?
Town clock is located on the steeple of the community church on Main Street.
I thought that was the church clock.
No, it's not. The town owns the clock.
What's the matter with a battery-operated clock?
It's a little more technical than that.
And if you get one that Denver changes the time, nobody would have to even go up there and change the time. You people want to save money. Let's start being reasonable here. If that was in my household, I wouldn't hire somebody for $2,000 a year to fix a clock. There are more important things in this town that's needed. You spent $50,000 on a survey of how the town was flooded. I came to this town during the flood. Not one person listened to me. I went to the fire station. Not one person listened to me. Do you know why the town flood? At the end of my property, it jumps the bank. It goes over to Hershey Lane at Marianne Hennigan's, and it goes to the town of Newmarket. But nobody wanted to listen to me. You spent $50,000 on a survey. That really galled me, especially when my tax jumped. $2,200. I worked 40 years, and just because I have a little bit of piece of property and I have a horse farm on it, this is my retirement. My husband and I are both retired. I pay $14,000 a year. I mean, this is, you know what? You can have the property, the horses, my belongings, everything, because it's not worth it. I can't afford to live here. I have to move. I have to get out. I have been here almost my entire life. Since I was 20 years old, I've been here. I think this is just totally outrageous. And how do I, as on Social Security, when I was working, nobody taught me 401ks and all that. They came later on in my life. I can't save like somebody out of high school that can save now. And you want $2,200 on me in 28 days? I'm going to have to borrow it someplace. And I don't know why you can't opt to drop the interest on this. You know, especially the above and beyond. Most people have put away, yes, I can pay my initial taxes. I've put away, but not the other $2,200. And yet I'm being penalized because I have to pay it. I think this should be waived. And give people at least 6 months, and after 6 months, then penalize them. And I don't know how about the rest of the people feel. I think this would be at least a little breather for everybody in this town to be able to waiver the interest on the added above and beyond. And as far as a new school goes, I'd rip the school down. And you know what I would do? I would save every town in America and have every student stay at home with a webcam. And all these teachers can teach every child right from their home. I really, every time I drive through town, to see a police cruiser at the high school 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, really galls me. Where is the principal and the superintendent? What's their job? To tell the policeman there's something wrong in the high school? We're paying that. We could eliminate that one policeman. When I went to school, we didn't have police protection inside the school. Is it that bad that we have to spend that kind of money policing our children? You know what? Rip the high school down. Look at all the money that would save by a webcam. And all these teachers can eat bonbons and teach at the same time. Thank you.
Thank you. If I may, before the next individual gets up, I hope that you realize, those of you that are in this room and watching at home, the town does not have any control over the budget of the school or the spending of the school. We deal with the municipal side of it, which is what you've received for information this evening. And if you have interests that or concerns that deal with the school, I would suggest that you take them up with the school, because we don't have any authority on the school. Anyone else for public comment?
Hi, Amy Thompson, Langs Lane. I've heard a quick question, and maybe some clarification can be given as far as the interest that's being, the 12% interest that comes on an unpaid tax balance. I'm aware that the town is not charging penalties per se or late fees based on what Becky has said. Can you explain why the town can or cannot waive the interest? Is there a statute? Is there something? I think that's unclear to a lot of us. Thank you.
My understanding is the statute that we can't.
It is. Ms. Benvenuti, you're here. I don't want to put you on the spot. Would you be able to respond to that? If you don't want to, that's fine.
I can't provide the specific
Thank you.
statute, but all the tax billing, the due date, the rate of interest that's charged on delinquent taxes, and then the increased rate that gets charged if delinquent taxes go to lien.
Right.
Everything that we do is not governed on a local level, it's governed by the state. And there is no provision in the statutes to blanket, to overall forego an interest rate, or for the governing body doesn't have any authority under the statutes, and they can't have more power than what the statutes provide. So the governing body in the local towns don't have authority to say, Becky, don't charge any interest on the tax bills. It's governed 100% by state statute.
I was looking this morning and trying to help this person. I was trying to look online for the actual RSA language.
I'd be happy to provide that to you tomorrow.
That would be great, just so that they could see it in print.
We've been, on the town clerk tax collector's webpage, as we've been receiving a lot of the similar questions, we've started an FAQ section.
Okay.
And I will add that, and I will put the statute on there.
You can find every place that it references it, do you know what I mean? But finding the actual wording is very tricky on the site. Thank you. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Ed Porterada, 177 Exeter Road, Newmarket. Last year's total budget was for the town was what, 9 million something?
Give me just a second, Mr. What was it?
9,649,110.
Yeah, I've got it
No.
someplace.
That was passed, and it was and that was with the $1,300,000 put in there, right? To
No,
keep it at that.
That was the operating budget,
Yeah.
correct?
Right.
That was the that doesn't count any of the revenues that are brought in, which obviously brings that 9 million and change down.
1,300,000 was part of it, right?
That was part of the revenues, yes.
Whatever, if you didn't put that in there, that means the total budget last year had been way over that, probably 10 million something, wouldn't it?
No.
If you didn't
No.
use the 1,300,000.
The operating budget is set up that is what the town is allowed to spend. We're not supposed to spend over the operating budget. It has nothing to do with the revenues or the buy-downs or anything like that. This is what the town is figuring they're going to spend during the course of the fiscal year.
But that 1,300,000 kept the budget at 9 million something, right? That was part of it?
The tax rate low, but it didn't change the budget. But
Right.
It lowered the amount we needed to raise from taxes.
Right.
But it doesn't make sense to me that you didn't know that what happened this year was going to happen, because, I mean, I'm just saying, somebody had to know that there was going to be a big increase in the town budget, which we could prepare ourselves, because my wife and I, we live on a monthly income that we have so much, but now we're cut short with this extra money, so we don't have it because we don't get into. I'm just saying, in our case, and probably in a lot of cases here, where everybody's hit with an extra 1,000, 1,200 for, and that, and nobody knew about it. That's what's amazing. I mean, I lived in this town since World War II when I came to live here. And I never seen anything like that. That you didn't know that there's going to be a increase like this. Nobody knew.
Mr. Porterada, as I stated, when Mr. Winalski gave me a call approximately 5 days before the rate became official, I was shocked. Okay, that's all I can tell you, and I'm sure Mr. Winalski cannot tell you what I said over the phone when he told me that, because I was not expecting that on the town side.
Well, in a way, I kind of expected it, because for the simple reason, first of all, we lost Stratham and Newfields in our dispatch. How much money were we getting from them?
70,000.
85 grand.
How much?
85 grand, based on what Chief Sear said.
Okay. And also there was a second part. I know the teachers, the contract for the police department, that I think it was $235,000 extra in pay for them. which, it was going up by different things. I'm just saying. I mean, somebody did their homework, they could have said, well, this is what the tax rate's gonna be. It just don't make sense. I mean, don't get me wrong, because, you know, I worked for a big company, Timberland. We knew exactly what everything was gonna happen, no matter what. And when something like this happens, it's a surprise, because I thought that, well, anyway, I would always insist on a investigation to find out why, if that's possible, that's all, because I think a lot of people are hurt in town. Not probably as much as, probably not I am, but some are gonna get hurt bad, and it's gonna keep on going. And then up to you guys, I've been here many times, and I'm happy to see what's happening in a way, because people are starting to sit up and notice something about the taxes in this town. And I blame some of the people because they don't come out and vote. And I think they ought to be unified, as people go out and vote and look at these warrants and see if they want them or not, and tell them what the tax rate might be if they pass all these warrants in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Porterato. Anyone else? Yes.
Couple of quick questions.
Could you state your
My name
name
is
and-
Roger Sansucci, 7 New Road.
Thank you.
Black Bear TIF. What's the protocol when you go to a Black Bear TIF meeting? We went and they wouldn't let us speak. We asked about it and we were kind of shunned. They wouldn't give us any information how to ask questions.
I'm not sure if there's any specific protocol. For example, this meeting, which is the first meeting of the month for us, we always allow public comment. Had this been a workshop, chances are there would not have been any public comment allowed. That's entirely up to, in my case, it's the chair that makes the decision on if there's public comments or not, and it's generally in the agenda, as it is in this evening.
There was no agenda saying there wasn't any public comment. So,
Was
I mean,
there
there
an
were only
agenda?
three of us
Was
sitting
there
in
an
there. It
agenda?
wasn't like Mr. Nazaro
There wasn't?
could
Was
testify
was there
to
an
that.
agenda?
There was an agenda and it did not have public comments on it.
So,
I mean, I will gladly talk to the chairman and try to get public
yeah,
comments on the
I
next
just want to
round.
know, can you speak before the meeting starts, or do you wait till after, or is it just closed?
Generally, public comment is one of the first items on the agenda.
Okay. Second question, still Black Bear TIF. All this talk about New Road Bridge. Where are you going to access the TIF property? You're talking about building a bridge, but you have no access to the property, so I'd like to know what property you're planning on buying and how much.
At the current time, I don't think we're planning on buying any property.
You're talking about building a bridge to get into the property, so you got to have access to it.
We're talking about the opportunity to build a bridge. We haven't done any engineering designs or anything like that. The bridge is not even in Newmarket.
I understand that, but that hasn't stopped you guys from.
It wouldn't be on our
talking.
dime.
Pardon me?
It wouldn't be on our dime if to build a bridge, as far as I know. We're
Who's
not
gonna take
talking
care of the
about,
bridge when it's built?
there's private entities that are involved in looking at the feasibility of building the bridge.
Another question is, there were three proposals, as far as the new road bridge, the railroad crossing, and the sky bridge going over the railroad tracks. I've only heard figures on the new road bridge. I haven't heard figures on the railroad crossing, which originally that's the way it was supposed to go through, and now we're trying to backdoor it again. I like some figures on a railroad crossing.
I believe those were given a previous.
The last I heard was
1, 2,
6,
1.
7 years ago, or maybe 10 years ago.
I can tell you what the quote was. It was somewhere between
1.2, 1.2?
Yeah, we shot low, but we used a $1 million figure when we did the assumptions, but it was probably a little light. And I think if the railroad controlled it, it would have been more like $1.2 million. But it became a moot point because they offered, Shearwater offered nothing. So it sort of fell off the table, and that's how New Road came up. So.
You know, we're looking, supposedly building fixing a bridge in Newfields, which we don't own. You're gonna have to upgrade all the new road, because you can't tell me that the only access you're gonna have is coming through Newfields. And, you know, especially with today's economy, you know, I know we need business per se, but the thing is, I'm kind of nervous that you're gonna put all this money into infrastructure, and then you're gonna let somebody walk in here and not pay a dime. Or give them such a good deal that they're gonna stay for maybe 10 years, and as soon as you raise the rates, they're gone, and we're gonna have an empty building. Okay, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Mr. Chase. Please state your name and address.
Good evening, I'm Cliff Chase. I live at 52 Elm Street, and I'm also on the school board. And I don't want to miss the opportunity when there's folks in the room and fresh questions asked about the things that have happened in the school budgets or may happen in the future. So if you don't mind, just a couple minutes. There's a question about an elevator that was voted for and not built. The concerns about not building it were that it would be in a location that would have prevented some options in expansion, and along the same lines as some reservations regarding renovating a building with all the problems that it has. The board elected not to do that, and the board worked very hard to make sure that those monies weren't just absorbed into a fund, spent on anything else. They were returned to offset the tax rate the following year. The other matter, a question that came up also was with regard to fire and life safety improvements to the tune of, I think it's $745,000, which is, that number came from the second year of study, or a second year of renovations as proposed, and then to satisfy these fire and life safety challenges, to bring us to a point where we're compliant within the time window we've been allotted by the fire marshal. Excuse me. There's been no decision on what is going to be on that warrant article. That isn't money that has been spent or has even been finalized yet. The warrant has not yet been written. It is a crazy idea to put a lot of money into a building that you want to tear down. The board is looking for creative solutions in avoiding doing those things. We don't want to spend money on a building only to tear it down. That's not wise. That's all I have. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Going once? Okay, with that, I'll close the public comment at 7:54. And if people desire to leave the meeting, as generally happens, I'll give just a couple of seconds for people to get up and move around and leave. And thank you for coming. I'm not sure if that's a good idea. I'd prefer to not do that. Okay, it's pretty well taken care of. The first thing on the agenda is actually approval of minutes, so I will look for a motion on the November 16th workshop minutes.
Make a motion to approve the November 16th, 2011 workshop minutes.
Any discussion or changes? Seeing none, Ms. Winowski, I'll ask for a vote.
Counsel Levy.
Aye.
Counsel Bentley.
Aye.
Counselor Nazaro.
Aye.
Counsel Barterman.
Aye.
Counsel Branch.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Also, Town Council Budget Committee, November 9th minutes, I believe, are there for approval. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve the November 9th Town Council and Budget Committee meeting minutes.
Second.
Any discussion or changes? Seeing none, Mr. Winowski, I'll ask for the vote.
Counsel Levy. Aye. Counsel Bentley.
Aye.
Counsel Nazaro.
Aye.
Counsel Barterman.
Aye.
Chairman LaBranch.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Okay, next up is the Town Administrator's Report. I'd like to get that out of the way. Becky, did you want to speak tonight, or are you just...
It's not necessary, unless...
If you have something to say, I'd be more than happy to allow you to...
Just as an update, the abatement documents are going in the mail, not today, unfortunately. We just couldn't get them in the mail today. They're going in the mail tomorrow. So all taxpayers should be receiving their abatement documents very, very shortly. And just a reminder, I know there's a lot of tax things going on, but we can't lose sight of the election on December 20th. The polls open all day. That will be here. And the presidential primary on January 10th, where we have absentee ballots for both elections. Those are available in the town clerk's office.
Thank you, Becky, and
You're
thank you
welcome.
for getting those
You're welcome.
notices out. Councilor Levy.
Becky, can I just ask one quick question? Sorry, I won't make it. I got a couple of emails regarding, the timeliness of the taxes and whatnot.
Okay.
Because, I think you got them as well, that they were sort of a little bit delayed. So I just made one question, which was based on the fact that people received their taxes a little later than maybe normal, making that assumption based on the information I was given. So I was going to ask you if there was any way that maybe you could request from DRA either backing off the interest that was requested earlier tonight or giving people a little extra time. I just thought I'd make the request on behalf of, because I think, and I'm not exactly sure on the timing, but what I was told was it was maybe roughly 30 days for, later than normal, and I don't know if that's accurate or not, but just say that is accurate just to make my point.
It's not accurate.
So do they go out at the normal timing?
Every municipality, especially every tax collector in the state, would love and shoots for the December 1st due date that's in the statutes.
Okay.
That's the target date. Bills cannot be due earlier than December 1st, but that requires all the entities that are involved in the tax rate setting to get their documents that are required in by September 1st, to get those documents in by September 1st, and that doesn't happen in a lot of cases. In Newmarket, our tax bill last year was due December 29th. This year is due December 28th. So we're about the same as we were last year, but we are late in getting our rate set. We're late in getting the rate, and we turned around and got the bills out 2.5 business days after we got the rate, which is pretty much unheard of.
Yeah, and I'm not criticizing.
No, but I mean, I want
know you're a
people to
little-
know that we...
No, that's not the point, though. If September 1st, or we shoot for that, maybe our finance director wasn't well, and what I'm basically saying is, I'm not saying anything was done inappropriate, but just with the tone of everything, I was just going to ask if there was, maybe it doesn't have to be 6 months as was requested earlier, and maybe the interest doesn't have to be completely eliminated. I was just wondering if there could be some relief considered, only because, September 1st was obviously not the time DRA got it, and I'll leave it at that, and it's up to you, but I just thought I'd bring it up, so.
Right, you can always ask questions. I
Well, that's
don't
why
have
I'm
any
asking.
problem asking questions, and I'm happy to ask the question if you'd like me to ask the question.
I don't think it's inappropriate.
Right, no, I agree. Becky, first of all, I'd like to, two things. I'd like to thank you and your staff for the work you did in getting the tax bills out, as ugly as it was, and for
It's not
taking-
was yet.
taking
It
the
hasn't turned
abuse, I'm
out
sure,
of-
that
from
you've had to
past
take
yet.
through no fault of your own. And I had a question, though, similar to Gary's, was that the interest, we have to charge interest by statute, correct?
Yes.
And he asked if we could eliminate that. I looked at it a little bit differently. Postpone it. If we can't, I would ask you to ask if there is a way where if we collected the interest, we could then immediately rebate it to the people that had to pay it. You know, there's a difference between having to collect it and then rebate it. You know, if you have to collect it, you have to collect it, but
Okay.
I don't know of any statute that.
The way
that
the
does-
statute works is the selectmen, town council, assessor, administrator in this town have the ability to abate for good cause any bill or interest on a case-by-case basis.
answers the question
On a
then.
case-by-case basis, but they don't, there isn't anything in the statute that allows us to change
Blanketly.
the rate, delay the rate setting, or any of that.
But as a council, we could make a decision to anybody that pays their tax bill within 60 or 90 days of the due date, we could make the decision to rebate any interest that they were charged, or abate the interest. That's what I think I just heard you say. It's up to the council to make that decision.
The statute says for good cause, so I think that would be a question, you know, that you would, again,
Yeah,
pose to the
sure.
DRA. It's not a question for me to answer.
Right.
Just to tag along on that, Becky, on a case, when you use the term a case-by-case situation, would that mean that each and every taxpayer would have to be looked at separately, or could you just, in a
Well,
general sense of the term, say that, you know, we're going to abate for 30, 60, 90, whatever?
Again,
I know you probably
Right.
don't have the specific answers, but I guess I'm looking more for, because if we had to abate, you know, 1,000 different tax bills, you know,
Right.
that could be consuming, obviously.
Many taxpayers are filling out and submitting abatement applications on their assessment and for their, you know, their reasons, their good cause reasons that they believe are. And those are done on a case-by-case basis. To deviate from that, it doesn't fit into the statutes, and so that's something that I would think you'd want to have the town attorney address. It's not, I mean, it doesn't fit in the statutes. I can't give you a statute that speaks to that, so I can't answer that question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becky.
Did you?
Yeah.
Well, okay, I think Councilor Bentley was first, though, but yours isn't working again.
My thunder was stolen. I wanted to thank you for the job you did. I know you guys were pretty much around the clock last couple days, and then one of my other questions was already asked. So I'm all set, thanks.
Okay.
Councilman Nazaro?
Just a quick question, or two quick questions. Who judges the case-by-case basis? Who's like the authority to determine whether or
The
not?
assessor.
The assessor?
The assessor receives all of the abatement applications, and he's the recipient of them, and I'm sure that he confers with the town administrator and potentially then the council.
Okay.
But it's typically the assessor that receives those and begins the process.
Okay, and the other question is, and I know it's minute money with what we're talking about here, but the cost of sending out we had to send out abatements for the individuals, how much did that like tally, well, I don't even care how much it tallied up to, since it was a DRA mistake, should DRA foot the bill for the cost? It shouldn't be Newmarket footing a bill for their mistake.
Yeah, the cost was,
You can't fight City Hall, but here we are
cost is
trying,
easy,
right?
probably a couple $1,000s.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the system would be to
Like getting blood
request
out of a
it.
stone.
Councilor Lobby?
This is a stretch, but
Uh-oh.
now, since the bills went out, and some people paid the bills immediately, I think I did, and since those folks have the benefit of being able to either get a credit or utilize it toward their next bill, is the way I sort of understood it was stated.
That's
right?
correct.
You know, maybe in the spirit of, and that's kind of confusing for people because, and maybe difficult for you guys to process. I don't know if somebody sent you a check right away and then they overpaid by $300 or whatever the number is. So, you know, maybe in this, and I'm just, listen, we heard plenty tonight. I know there's people that weren't given a proper heads up. Some of the information did get in a little bit late. It happens. Maybe, you know, regarding the credits and everything, there would be a way to give people that relief, and maybe it's 90 days. And that's the only reason I brought the subject up. I just want to be clear as to why I brought it up. Because if somebody paid too much, Becky, right?
Right.
I understood it that they would either get the money, they could use it toward their next tax bill,
That's correct.
or they could request the money
Be refunded.
be refunded,
That's
which
correct.
is a lot of processing and a lot of other things. And so the reason I just thought that maybe, you know, in lieu of that, giving people that extra 60, 90 days without the interest might give them a little breather. I'll leave it at that.
Right, I don't want to leave this podium with a misunderstanding here. I hear what you're saying, and I think we all feel the same way. I mean, we were all hit with this, we were all surprised, we all have a significant tax bill to pay. And I hear what you're saying, and I definitely have, you know, the same desire you do, that all of those things would be good to be able to do. I'm just telling you that the mechanism is set under state statute, and, you know.
Yeah, but the
again,
state made a mistake, with all due respect. The state made a mistake.
Yeah, and
I'll leave it at this. It may be worth a phone call to just say, geez, you know, a lot of people are upset, you know, kind of blindsided us.
I agree with that.
And I'll leave it at that. Maybe just a
Yep.
phone call. It can't hurt.
Right.
And if it's a no, it's a no.
Right.
But it's better than, you know, a nothing.
Mhm.
So, thank you.
Okay.
I just would like to suggest to the council, and I don't want to give you any more work than you already have, because I know you've been very busy the last couple of weeks. But I would like to request the council to at least get a definitive answer between the town clerk tax collector and the town administrator, contacting DRA, contacting legal, in regard to potentially doing away with the interest rate for a 60 or 90-day period based on circumstances overall for penalties.
Okay.
With you know, and I would even go to the extent that, you know, we're talking the additional funding of the tax bill. In other words, if my tax bill would have been $2,000 and now it's $2,700, I still have to pay the $2,000 before the deadline, but the $700 would be waived. And I understand that could be a bookkeeping nightmare for you, but in an effort to at least exhaust potential, you know, somehow to find a break. Maybe DRA is just going to flat out say, no, you can't do it.
Okay, so the question that I'm asking, just
90.
I don't
would be a
want
good
any
number.
misunderstandings,
90
is you're
days.
asking me to ask the DRA if
And
the,
legal.
if the, if the increase in the tax rate, which had nothing to do with their error,
Correct.
okay, if the increase in the tax rate, the $3.51, if as the town can waive the interest on that increment for 60 to 90 days, is that what
Yes.
you're, okay.
That's all I can, I think,
Okay.
and that's all that the people can ask at this point.
Yeah, just because some people might have paid up front and it, you know, there's
Well,
a
I
way
think,
everybody
I
good
think
with
that's
that?
one question. The other question, I think, is that you, if, assuming the answer to that is no, then the next question would be, can we legally abate the interest charges?
Which I think would be the legal question.
Yeah, for
I
90
Well, but DRA might know that. They might have
They
been
might,
asked these
they might.
questions
The answer to
100
that
times.
is yes, already. That's in the statute. You have the right, as
Hey, we
had,
meet
you've
again
had
in 2
people
weeks.
come
I'd
to you
like to have
before
some
and
answers
ask for
in
abatements and
In
interest.
mass, though,
Do
would
a
they
case
take a,
by
would
case.
would
Well,
DRA be,
let's see if we have to do it.
would DRA oppose it if we did it in mass?
If we can even do it, how do we do it? And if we could have the answer in 2 weeks. for our
And
next
so we
meeting.
would be waiving the interest rate for people who are unable and have not paid their bill by the due date.
Right.
Not, this would not affect people who've already paid the full amount of their bill, is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay.
Everybody
Yes.
good with that? I mean,
Yeah, I'm good.
Thank you, Becky.
Okay.
Just one last question.
yes.
Yeah, this is just my ignorance. Where does the 12% interest go?
The 12% interest goes to the town, and that, because the town absorbs all the costs of collecting taxes for the school, county, and state ed, that's one of the ways that the town is reimbursed, per se, receives its, the cost back of collecting taxes, is through the interest. So the town alone gets to keep the interest. It doesn't go to those other entities. It
Okay.
goes to the general fund as a revenue.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Becky. Okay. Chief Sears here. Chief, did you want to talk about, you're here for item number 3, I believe? 3? Yeah, okay. So, Mr. Winowski, if you would please give your update, and then we can move on with the rest of the agenda. And Diane, I'm sorry.
Well, first, I want to talk about Shearwater property. The council has come to an agreement with Mark Stevens or Shearwater, which provides him 180 days to conduct an investigation or due diligence pertaining to the reconstruction of the New Road Bridge, which is in Newfields. The agreement provides that at the expiration of the 180-day period, Shearwater will notify the town whether it elects to participate with other parties in the reconstruction, repair, or replacement of the bridge as a means to provide some sort of access into Black Bear TIF. If he chooses not to undertake the improvements, or after stating he will but fails to follow through, town's legal counsel currently holds a signed deed that transfers the property back to the town of Newmarket, which counsel is holding, and he would then register it at the Rockingham Registry, and the town would receive the Ham property back. The agreement also provides that the town council approval, Shearwater may use the Ham property to obtain a construction mortgage to undertake bridge improvements, at which time the deed would be transferred to a third party to be held until such time as the bridge is completed. And then upon completion of the bridge, the town council would release the mortgage and return the deed back to Shearwater. So basically, it provides Shearwater, Mark Stevens, an opportunity over the next 6 months to undertake a program to see whether or not he's going to move forward with making repairs, working with the state, working with Newfields in that regard. As was mentioned by Councilor Bentley, last Wednesday there was the public hearing on by EPA relative to the draft permit. I can tell you that most of the organizations that attended commended the EPA for putting forward a permit of 3 milligrams per liter of nitrogen. At this time, individuals can comment to EPA. Closing date is December 16th. There are charter amendments that the council had adopted earlier this year. I'll be pulling those together and to incorporate into the warrant, so that way those can be adopted at the hopeful March meeting. Becky had talked a little bit about reminding everybody of the special town meeting on the 20th. Polls will be open from 7 to 8 right here in the auditorium, and hope that people can access the warrant for that meeting online, and they can also pick up copies here at the town hall, either in the town clerk's or at the town administrator's office. Also, Council Levy last meeting brought up a inquiry relative to an incident where a resident in town was having an electrician perform some work at their resident. They failed to pull a permit, which they then did, and then received a penalty. We looked into that situation, and the penalty has been returned back. We also have one other individual that sent me an email relative to an action that was happening at his house. The same similar situation happened. We're going to be taking care of that individual also.
You made this person very happy. That $90 meant
I know it did.
a lot.
Yep. Yep. That's it.
Councilor Bentley.
A question and a comment on the wastewater treatment. The last sentence, Ed says, Newmarket will provide additional written comments to the EPA. Who officially Anyone? Any resident can get them to you?
Yes.
Then I can't stress enough for any residents watching this that are sewer users that if you saw the meeting, replay it. If you haven't seen it, go look at it. Triple. Your cost's going to triple from $7 to $2,100. And one of my proposals was the EPA, when they started these VOC levels, and I'm not a scientist, I'm going to try to keep it real simple because I need it for myself. VOC is the volatile organic compounds in paint, and it was at 750 at one point, and they gradually are bringing it down. California, Delaware watershed, and across the country. It's going to go from 750, it already went down to 550, 350, it's going to go down to 250. It's slowly going down, and all a lot of us were asking was, instead of the plant that's going to make it only 3 milligrams per liter, which will cost, Sean's gone, 3 million more? If we built a plant that made it 8 milligrams per liter, which still gets 80% of the nitrogen. Everyone agreed on that. All the scientists agreed that even 8% will get rid of 80% of the nitrogen being released in the bay. That's a huge difference. It's going to be bad anyway. Your cost is going to double if we go to the 8 milligrams, but it's going to triple if we have to go to the 3. So I can't, again, like I said, I'm not even on the waste system, but I kind of feel we're getting bullied into my way or the highway. You have to do 3, you have to do it all now, and they had folks representing, like Ed said, Trout Unlimited and a lot of groups that think it's the right thing to do, and we all care about the bay, but I think it's a bigger issue than eelgrass, and no one can answer my question about all the nitrogen that's coming down the river from other towns. The Lamprey River comes out of Pawtuckaway, goes through Raymond, Epping, Lee, Durham, Newmarket, and I fly fish in areas where there's cows in the water, and that's coming down here, and people, golf courses on the river, and there's a lot of home nitrogen going and coming down to us, and EPA can't answer that for me. So I can't stress enough that folks get involved and get some letters here so we can send them out and contact your reps, which some of them went to the meeting and tried to help us too. Adam was there speaking for us, so thank you for the time.
Councilor Nazaro.
Councilor Bentley said exactly what I was going to say. I mean, we have a very motivated populace right now, and I think that this is some way that we can help keep the cost of living in this town down. So totally encourage people to contact any of us to find out more about it and how they can help. And your senators and representatives, local and federal level. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Agenda item number 1. Ms. Hardy is going to speak with us regarding the steering committee for the dam removal feasibility study. Good evening, Diane.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council. As you all know, at the last annual meeting, there was a special warrant that was passed which appropriated $40,000 in funds for a feasibility study to look at removal of the dam. And this was based on a request from a group of citizens who had had issues with flooding and felt it was time that we take some action to at least look at that as an option, especially in light of the fact that there's been engineering work done that estimate the cost of repairs at about $500,000 to be done. In June of this year, the council met with Deb Lozelle, who is the River Restoration Coordinator, works for the Dam Bureau at the State Department of Environmental Services, and she came forward and offered assistance from her agency to help the town with raising additional funding as needed to complete the study. The estimated cost of the feasibility study is somewhere in the range of $120,000 to $150,000. And over the last few months, I've been working with Deb Lozelle, with Julie Glover, who, as you know, is leaving us. And we've been working on several grant applications. We submitted one in August to NOAA and the Conservation Law Foundation for $40,000, and we've received word that that grant has been approved. We haven't actually seen the official paperwork from NOAA and from the Conservation Law Foundation, but we're awaiting that. Since then, we've worked on a couple of other applications. We submitted an application to the Gulf of Maine a letter of intent for some additional funding, $40,000. And this week, I've been working directly with Deb Lozelle on putting together an application to the American Rivers Program for $50,000. If all these funding sources become available to us, which would be nice, that would provide $170,000 to the town to pursue the dam removal study. One of the recommendations that Deb had for the town when she met with you in June was that it would be really nice to get a steering committee set up, a group representing the town of citizens who can help sort of facilitate this process. And she asked you to take a look at, how many people you might like to include and who you might like to include. Well, since that time, Ed and I have had some discussions about possibly having maybe a 5 or 6 member steering committee set up. And the role of the steering committee would be to, first off, put together a request for proposals, which is one of the federal requirements to move forward with a study of this nature. And other communities have worked successfully with having the steering committee help to define what the scope of services might be. The cost of the study really is dependent upon what we want. As you know, there's many different aspects of the feasibility study that should be looked at. I think I'm getting that laryngitis that's going around, excuse me. And to sit down and figure out what are we going to study. There's a number of issues. We can study water quality, we can study the economic impacts, how dam removal would affect property values, how it would affect the town's maintenance costs. Also, there's the environmental impacts. How is it going to affect our fisheries and wildlife habitat? There's, of course, recreational impacts. Mr. Bentley mentioned he was a fly fisherman. This, of course, could have some impact to the fishing community. And so what we're suggesting is that we have a committee that's really representative of all the interests that the town feels is important as we undertake this study. So the committee would not only prepare the RFP with assistance from staff and from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services and Fish and Game. There's a number of state stakeholders, if you will, who've come forward to offer help, but would also help to provide some, local connections, if you will, help to direct the process, and will facilitate the public participation component, which will come in the latter stages of the project. So we are recommending that the council consider setting up a steering committee, if you will, of maybe 5, 6 members. And Ed and I kind of went through and identified possible interests that might be on that committee. There could be a town council representative, someone from the Conservation Commission, perhaps some of the citizens who initially came forward and requested the warrant article. They may have an interest in participating in this. Also, our Lamprey River Watershed Association is very interested in this project, and perhaps even the local advisory committee, River Advisory Committee, could participate as well. So I guess we're here today to broach the subject with you and to hear what your response might be to this. And we're hoping to get this set up fairly quickly so that we can start working on this in January. The sooner we define what's in the scope of services, we'll be in a much better position once the grant money comes together so that we can move forward. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and would
Councilor Nazaro.
like to hear your reaction.
Just some clarifying questions on some
Sure,
of the things you said.
certainly.
So you said, should all the grants come through, have about 175K. Does that include the 45K from the warrant article?
Yes, it does.
You also said that there's a federal requirement for an RFP. RFP for
Well,
what?
oh, I'm sorry, excuse me, forgive me. To hire a consultant who would undertake the study.
Okay, so RFP
So
for
the
someone
fee
to
would
go
be
and
to hire a
feasibility.
consultant to do the feasibility study. And that would include possibly pulling together a project team of, environmental specialists as well as engineers. Another component which I failed to mention is, of course, the dam is part of a National Register Historic District, so there's going to be some consideration of the historic and cultural impacts that dam removal might have. So, as part of that process, we would perhaps get some funding through that source as well.
I know we're tracking, I'm assuming we're tracking our labor for this, for in-kind?
Yes, that's there are some in-kind services. The state representative that I spoke of, she's offered to provide in-kind match for this project. She is not funded by other federal funds, so that her time in assisting us in putting applications together counts as match. Also, we've had some interests from the Trout Unlimited group, and they're offering a small amount of money to help with the overall cost. So,
my question is more of how much thus far have we, as the town of Newmarket, spent in kind?
I would say probably, it's hard to, and we'd have to sit down and figure out the hours, but I spent maybe a week on the grant application in August, and this week I've spent maybe 3 or 4 days working on it and pulling the pieces together and the information and so forth.
So we haven't really ramped up.
So, no, we haven't. But also, my hope is with the steering committee that we might have some people who will be willing to roll up their sleeves and help out with some of this work that needs to be done, and that they could, in their time would be considered as match. Also, the fishing game, there's a whole number of state agencies that would provide assistance. And if they're not federally funded programs, then that counts as the match. So we're meeting and Deb is fantastic because she's able to creatively work all these different grant programs with the match and the in-kind match that we identified so that we can, put the project together to get it funded.
So my last question is probably more for the administrator so this passed on a warrant article, the initial 45K. So if we get through the next deliberative session and election to complete the next town meeting, and this has not been, the 45K has not been spent, are we still beholden as a town to spend that 45K on this study?
We can encumber that.
Yes, it's
It's been encumbered. and it'll-
5K is the match to obtain the funds from NOAA and CLF and a variety of other groups. The way that they've structured it for the first round is not to use the entire $45,000, use a portion of it, and then at a later date, use the balance of that to leverage some additional money in addition to.
We're on the hook
Lapse
for
in
this.
a year.
It doesn't lapse in a year. So we're on the hook to spend 45K at some point in order to.
Either that or not spend it at all.
Right.
If we want to go against the will of
Will
the
of
voters,
voters,
we
right.
could say we're not going to spend a nickel.
Right, and the voters want it. Okay.
I did want to mention that the engineering work that was done on the McAllen Dam repair study that was done by Wright Pierce, the dollar value of that work, which has already been spent, is going to count as matched towards the current application that we're working on. So it's a way of kind of creatively working the different funding sources to put the package together to appeal to the agency that you're applying
I'm not a
to.
huge fan of seeing the dam go down, but thank you very much.
Vice Chair?
Diane, I think you know I have a tendency to oversimplify these things, but I personally think a committee is a waste of time. Exeter just sent out the exact same proposal. Why can't we get their RFP where it says Exeter, change it to Newmarket, and send it out?
As a matter of fact, we do have their RFP.
Why don't we just
We do.
edit it and
Well,
send it out?
because I think the issues in Newmarket, we have
The
some
same
cultural issues, we have, well, I think.
Same issues you have everywhere, and anytime you take any DMO. And I'm not saying exclude the public, we're just asking an RFP for a
No, I guess
consultant.
I
So-
value the input that we receive from citizens, and that makes for a better planning process. And down the road, when the decision is made, the more involved people feel in the process and the more knowledgeable they are, I think the overall process, decision-making process that the town council will have to go through will be a lot easier.
Why?
So it's an opportunity to get buy-in from the public, perhaps, or for whatever the
Talk
perspective
about one
is.
person from the public.
No,
on
I'm
the
sorry, no,
committee.
we're talking 6 people from the public.
Yeah,
including
Conservation Commission agent.
Okay, I'm
Somebody-
sorry, I didn't finish my
Oh,
list.
okay, yep.
Okay, somebody from the Water Shed Association.
Yep.
We talked about somebody perhaps
Historical,
representing
cultural background.
historic
Yeah.
preservation.
Yep.
Rick Malosky obviously has an interest in this, and we'd like to involve him. And, I would be involved from a planning perspective.
Right.
And was there anyone else that we overlooked, Ed?
Nope. That's pretty much it.
Conservation?
So
Did she
it's a
mention
vehicle
that?
by which you
Conservation, someone-
encourage
there is
citizen
somebody-
input and to
Yeah,
provide
but the
some
RFPs
continuity.
The RFPs, I mean, the study that needs to be done to remove a dam, a lot of what the significant majority of what you need to do is required. There's very little room for additions or deletions. There's a set of specifications, requirements that you have to look at when you remove a
There
dam.
might be some areas that we look at in more detail, impacts on property values.
But, I mean, you look at them or you don't look at them,
Well,
I've said enough. That's my opinion, is I just think sometimes when committees just slow things down, where we could get an RFP on the street in a
Well,
week without a committee.
The process isn't just getting the RFP on the street, but it's overseeing the project and providing input to, the state people who are going to be assisting. I mean, they can deal with the technical issues, but they don't know Newmarket and can't necessarily speak for the townspeople.
Councilor Levy?
That's my perspective.
Just a couple things. When will you know whether the grants are either approved or not?
Okay. Well, as I said, we're waiting on one of them now.
So what do you think the timeline is?
The one we just submitted at the end of November to the Gulf of Maine, they'll be asking us to submit a more complete application if they're interested in our project, and I think that's sometime in February. So, I mean, if we're successful, we could probably have the funding lined up by June.
Okay. If for any reason you don't get all of it, just for sake of my question, would you cut back on the 170? The gross
Well,
was 170. We put in 45. They matched the 45, which would have made it 90.
Okay,
Right?
and then we have one for 50,000.
Okay, so
working
that's
on today,
140.
And then the one that we just submitted at the end of November is for
Okay.
40.
What I was getting at is could it be adjusted a little bit if we don't get the grants, just to keep the money down?
Yeah, I mean, that's the goal. I mean, we may
And
not get all the grant money.
my
and
last, okay, thank
We've
you.
also asked them, if they can't give us the full amount, a reduced amount certainly would be appreciated.
Okay, and my last question was, when do you think, if this all goes on the timeline you're talking about, June or whatever, May, June, when when will the whole,
They've
What's the end date?
indicated
What's the
that
end date?
it would take 2 years from start to finish just to do the feasibility study.
we're talking 2014 to 15?
Right. That's just the study piece. And bear in mind, the study piece also includes environmental permitting, doing the assessments, and, so there are others that will be part of it.
Permitting. The study includes
It doesn't include
identifying what permits
permitting,
you
but it will
need.
identify the permits that'll be needed. So the next step would be going into more detailed engineering and doing the permitting,
What I'm
which
re-
could be another, I don't know. I worked on a project in Exeter years ago with their Riverwalk, and it took us 2 years to get an Army Corps of Engineers permit. So, we're talking maybe several years just getting
Yeah,
the permit.
the only reason I'm asking is I'm trying to give the people that have, asked for
Yeah.
this, to give them a realistic idea of whatever decision is ultimately made, what that timeline is. And does it ultimately go to a vote? Like, for example, if the study says, get rid of it or keep it or whatever it is, right?
Yeah, because the town
Now
owns
we've
the
got this
dam.
document,
Right.
right? Does it go to the voters to ultimately decide, or what's the, I'm trying to figure out.
Well, I think it's,
It would go to the voters.
it's owned by the town, so I think most definitely would go to the voters for that vote. But the idea is to have as much information as possible, so when that decision is made, at least it's based on well-documented information, so you can't say, well, we didn't know that.
Okay.
That's the goal
It's a
anyway.
long process.
Councilor Bentley?
A couple of questions and a comment. Do we have any idea what it is? It says, I believe the time has come to council to consider appointment of committee and to hire a consultant. What are we talking about money-wise hiring a consultant? And does that come
That's-
out of the
that-
grant money?
Yes, oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's to actually hire the consultant.
So, a
which
couple
is-
comments, just
Go
general
ahead.
comments.
Certainly.
This summer, before the big hurricane, we did this miraculous thing. We lowered the water in the river so we wouldn't have flooding. And I'm just kind of wondering why maybe that's not an option, that we do that before big events. With the forecasting now, we know hurricanes are coming, we know big rain events are coming. We didn't do it in '06 and '07 in the floods, because that's what stemmed from all this. A property owner, Mr. Phelps, flooded his property, he moved to town, bought the property, the Boyer property. He's very anti-river. Didn't copy me in the notes purposely because he knows I'm against this. But we can talk about grants and everything, but we just heard a lot of people very angry about the money we're spending. The removal of the dam is the real cost. The study is nothing. And we had some professionals come in here and tell us, depending what they find behind there, it could be 300,000. If this sediment is considered hazardous waste and you have to drum it out and have Ashland or Triumvirate come and take it and you pay $250 a barrel. So just beware, town, that the study's one little piece of the puzzle. And if you want to see the impact of it again, look at the pictures from when we lowered it the last 2 times. And another impact that no one, Mr. Phelps just asked about what the impact would be for another flood on the town and what it costs the town. I was up there a lot this summer at Twin Rivers when there was 20 vehicles of people in their canoes and kayaks out on that river in boats, and you can guarantee they stopped and bought gas, and you can guarantee they bought sandwiches at L&M and tonics here and ice here, and there's some economic impact there. And lastly, when I asked about talking to other towns, because the Lamprey River isn't Newmarket's Lamprey River. It belongs to Raymond, Epping, Durham, and Lee. I was point blank told that I don't live in Durham, Lee, I live in Newmarket. So I think we ought to talk to some of our neighbors how they like to have the river look like what it looked like when we loaded it the last 2 times. That's what it's going to look like. We don't need really a big study to determine the impact of it. You're not going to kayak, you're not going to fish, you're not going to do a lot of the things you do. So we can talk about grants and searching it. The real cost is the removal of it. So make sure everyone remembers that.
Couldn't agree with you more, Mr. Bentley.
Okay, I just want to weigh in. I know that Councilor Nazaro wants to speak, but I haven't had a chance to weigh in on it. And I guess my take on this whole thing right now is the council did support this on the warrant, even though it wasn't unanimous. The voters passed it. And in fairness to that, I think that where the council has, in one sense, directed Ms. Hardy to kind of head this up a little bit for us, to get it off from our plate, that therefore the recommendations that she brings up, I feel we should heed to. That's just my thought. If you disagree with me, that's fine. But if she's coming here and suggesting that we put a committee together to work on this, then I think we find the people to do this. And, you know, the voters spoke on it. I mean, I'm personally not in favor of removing the dam, but I supported it because there was a petition article to do this. So that's my thoughts, and if we're going to do this, I would like to do this and go to these various boards and see if their chair people or some of the members that sit on these boards would be willing to join with Diane and Rick. I think we should make Rick Julie's replacement on this committee, my opinion. But that doesn't cost the town any money to do that at this point, other than Diane's time, which I appreciate.
You need to recognize that takes away from other things that I might be working on.
But that's just my 2 cents on it, and Councilor Nazaro.
So, yeah, I mean, I would never want to just take away from the will of the voters. I mean, they're the legislative authority in this town. But I would say that they voted for $45,000 and not a cent more. So, and I would.
We're spending is
right.
$45,000.
Yeah, $45,000, and I think that
actually
Diane
it was
just
40,
made.
Wasn't it?
It was 45.
I thought it was 40.
It's 40. It got changed at the
I thought it
deliberative
was 40,
session from
so-
45 to 40.
No, it was 85, and it got
went from-
changed
I
down
think
to
it went from-
45.
I thought it went from 90 to 45.
We can look at the notes
we
to
can
figure
find
that out.
out.
But my point is salient either way. And Diane actually, to go, you could be doing other things that you're not doing right
Exactly.
now.
That's
So
right.
I don't know the legality of this. I'm not a lawyer. But as much as we could count her time or Rick's time as in kind, I would like to see that counted as dollars against 45, and that 45,000 or whatever, 40 or whatever the number is clicking, and that once we hit the zero on that, game over. So, and will the voters, so is that if we pull in $175,000 of grants, game on, it's all, we have enough money to foot it. But I think that if we are asking town employees on taxpayer dollars to do this as opposed to something else, that should count against the $45,000 the taxpayers voted to spend on this.
Okay.
My 2
Good
cents.
point. Okay, anyone else? Because if not, then I would ask the council if you'd like to move forward with perhaps having Diane or Julie contact these boards and maybe put the word out. We were looking for how many actual citizens,
I think there's 6.
We said 5 or 6, and,
citizens not associated with any of these boards.
Oh, no, 1.
oh, no, I was,
One?
the entire
Okay,
committee
so
being 6.
if you're a citizen out there that's not associated with any one of these, what are they? Conservation, Watershed Association, Historical Cultural Background, which I would assume would be Advisory Heritage, would you?
Could be Advisory Heritage or someone from the Historical Society.
Historical Society. If you're not associated with those, then I would ask you to put your name in, and we can potentially do this at the workshop, which would give you a committee basically ready to go in January.
That would be
if the
fantastic.
council's okay with that. Councilor Bentley.
Just that I certainly think it's good to keep groups small, but if you're going to take, let's just say, we take one from the Conservation because of the watershed, and so there's, in one additional member from the community, one person can sway a lot. Who decides? We decide who that one, if 7 people put in an application, I want to be on the, how does that get decided? And then if it's a person who's pro or a person who's against, there's no other people. That's why we have 7 councilors, not 1 or not 3, or that one person can carry a lot of weight speaking for the people. That's all I'm saying. Maybe the number is 3 people, or maybe it's just my opinion. You're going to put the rest of this town is going to let. Yes, there's some people from boards talking for them, but as far as just a general citizen, there's one person talking for them. That to me is. I would be scared of it.
I don't think this committee's in the position to make any decisions other than what the RFP is going to be.
Right.
Right? I
Well,
mean-
yeah, and let's say we need to get
Due
some
diligence.
input as to how we want to do a public participation piece. Do we want to have a town meeting type thing? Do we want to put something on Channel 13? I mean, just to provide some advice to us as we go through the process. And
Then back to my question. We get 5 applicants. How does it get decided which applicant goes on that? Do we
We'd vote, the council would vote on it. We have a standard
vote.
procedure for voting, right?
I would suggest that if there's 5 people from the public that come in, that they would come in and present themselves at that meeting. If we're fortunate enough to have 5 people that are interested.
the ultimate decision as to who the consultant who's going to be hired and entering into a contract, that would still rest with the town council as it does now.
So are we good with that? To try to get the people, we'll put out the notification that we are looking for a citizen representative and hit these other organizations and see if they perhaps have someone that's interested in becoming part of this team. Okay.
Sounds great.
Is everybody good with that? Thank you, Diane.
Great, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
With the council's indulgence, I'd like to move number 3 up so we can get Chief Sear up and maybe out of here this evening. Council will be voting on the acceptance of $10,000 from the 2007 Homeland Security Grant Program Award. Good evening, Chief.
Good evening. A couple of months ago, when I was in talking in one of my monthly sessions about the news, I mentioned that we were up for a up to $10,000 grant from the Homeland Security at the state level to assist in paying back, reimbursing the town for overtime spent by 1 or 2 of my detectives who are engaged in a preparation of a, for lack of a better word, newsletter type of thing involving intelligence on criminal activity in the seacoast. We've been involved with the area police departments around us for several years now, where the detectives get together once a month and they toss back names and exchange information about what's going on in their towns. A lot of times criminal activity extends across the borders, so we've been sharing this information for a while. Recently, the state put together an office out of the state police that's doing the same thing on a statewide basis. Detective Sergeant Laurent has been compiling a lot of the information here in the Seacoast area, and she does such a good job at it that the state looked at what she was doing and her work product, and they've been holding it up as a model for the rest of the state, for the areas around the state to be doing the same thing. And they approached me and said, listen, we'd like her to do this, be a kind of a clearinghouse for information that's going on. For example, York, Maine has a burglary and a safe is stolen. A couple of days later, Raymond PD finds a safe on the side of Route 101, and they're like, I have no idea where this safe came from. And it's a matter of getting the two departments to talk to each other. So, first thing I said was, well, how much is this going to take from her time? And what they offered to do is said, listen, if she's willing to do this 2 or 3 hours a week, 4 hours a week, on her own time, we'll cover her overtime expense if you pay her. So, and they approached me about doing this. So I thought that was an excellent use of her time, where she's interested in doing it. She does a great job. Basically, it's a clearinghouse. When somebody has something go on, they report it to her. She looks and she connects the two dots for people. She's not doing it on town time. As a matter of fact, taxpayers here aren't paying for her to do it. If we pay her overtime to do it, our overtime expenses will be reimbursed in full, including the benefit package by the state. And we'll keep track of that, and periodically, quarterly, I'll bill them, and they'll reimburse us for it. So it really isn't any cost to us to have it done. What I would need is just approval from the council to accept the monies.
Seeing that there's no cost to the town, I will make a motion that we accept the New Hampshire Department of Safety Homeland Security grant in the amount of $10,000.
Second.
There's a motion and a second, and
I'm Jim Bergeron. Okay, since my life.
Councilman Zarro.
So, I was reading the documentation behind this, and it says that the grant award is subject to federal program requirements and special conditions. Then we have the special conditions. So the special conditions goes on to list things like you must comply with National Incident Management System, minimum requirements for fiscal year 2007 Homeland Security grant guidelines, talks about additional training, talks about complying with and be familiar with Homeland Security Professional Directive 8, National Response Plan, and that we have to use the Global Justice Data Model specifications and guidelines. All this looks like things that are to cost more. So are we getting $10,000 to tie a noose around ourselves that are saying, now you have to be in compliance with all these things that are going to cost money down the line? With everything on this. So there's none of these that we're not in compliance with right now. Okay, thank you. That's all I need to know.
Councilor Levy?
Just because I'm not familiar with this, is once we get this money, I'm assuming, is this just a one-shot deal?
Nope, this is up to, technically the grant, the paperwork there says it expires the end of this year.
Well,
It does not, it's going to be extended. It's going to be extended, I've been told. A full year. It'll be a full year till next year, next December.
And then what happens?
We'll be done with it, or they'll refund it.
So if they don't refund it, just
quit.
for my own edification, we'll be done with it?
We'll be done with it.
Okay. Just want to make sure we're not starting something up that's going to go into perpetuity.
I think that they're going to continue with it, quite frankly. They were so excited about it at the state level that they actually approached us to take the money. So they want to keep it going. So I'm not going to spend our money doing this.
Can I ask one more really quick? On the second paragraph and regarding the total calls and whatnot that we got on this from you, it said at the end of September 2010, dispatch had handled 15,544 calls for service.
No, that's his report.
Oh.
Yes. That's
So
got
it's
nothing to do with this.
Okay, so I shouldn't ask him about that now. Okay. I just had a quick question. Okay, no problem.
Okay.
I'll ask another time.
Give me a call.
Okay.
Okay, I don't see any other lights, but I do want to make mention for the record, since we do not have a recording secretary, that Councilor Zink did arrive at 8:42. So he is certainly able to vote on this motion. No other discussion. Ms. Winowski, I'll ask for the vote.
Counsel Levy?
Aye.
Council Bentley?
Aye.
Council Zink? Aye. Council Nazaro? Aye. Council Waterman?
Aye.
Chairman LeBranch?
Aye, motion carries 6-0. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Council want to take 5?
Yes.
5-minute recess, please. John? Gary, we on?
Yes.
Okay, we're on again, people.
We're on
If I
again.
could have your attention, please, we're on. Next item is council vote on deliberative session date and review of town warrants. The first part of this, I'll be very brief on. I requested this be put on as a decision-making adventure so that we can set our deliberative session up. My recommendations are that we set aside the first Saturday, which would be February 4th, as a potential date, provided the school decides to go along with us. Should the school not go with us, then I would request the following Tuesday, which would be the 7th. Am I doing my math right?
Yep.
As our alternative date. So in other words, if the school is willing to do a double with the town on a deliberative session, we do it Saturday the 4th. If they're not, we do it Tuesday, February 7th.
And they continue to do it.
They'll do it whenever they choose. Counselor, Vice Chairman.
I guess first of all, I'll say, I believe that the school board already voted to not do it at the same time as us, the deliberative session.
I don't know.
But, having said that, I will make a motion that we approve Saturday, February 4th as the deliberative session, with the caveat that that would be if the school concurs and does it at the same time, or if not, then we approve February 7th.
Second.
Counselor Nazaro with the second. Discussion, Counselor Levy.
Okay, just quick, I just want to clarify. So if the school decides that they want to do it with the town, it would be the Saturday the 4th,
Correct.
and it would start when? Just ballpark.
9, 10 o'clock.
Okay, and it would go generally, what, to 4 o'clock?
Last year's deliberative sessions combined took approximately 5.5 hours based on the tapes that I
Okay.
went back and checked on.
And that would have to do with all the warrant articles and all the dollars and whatnot.
Yes.
Okay, well, and if not, then we move it, theoretically, we move it for our own to Tuesday, and it would be at,
7 o'clock.
okay. Well, not to editorialize, because I try not to, but I really think if we're going to be talking about deliberative and warrants and dollars spent, it would be really, I think, a benefit to everybody if we did it on the same day. I know it's more painful.
It's beyond our control.
It's not our
But, no,
control.
I understand. I'm just
Oh, yeah.
saying that I think it would be a real benefit because it's going to be very hard for a lot of people. And when I say a benefit, I think if people want to make their pitch, because if it passes on the 20th and we have a one-day vote, if people want to make their argument for the school, for sake of to make my point, I'm trying to be somewhat nebulous, that would be the time to do it when everybody's there. Otherwise, with the tone that is being felt, I think they're going to have a tough time with certain things, so I'll leave it at that.
I think we all agree with that.
Right, and we should make I would like to make a friendly amendment to the motion that this is contingent on the vote passing on the 20th, which.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously, but it should be, stipulated in the motion.
I accept the amendment.
And
Someone should, and one last thing, someone should maybe reach out and just maybe have that conversation with the school side, just because everybody will be there and it'll be a good time to really.
I believe they're actually meeting tomorrow evening, too.
Okay, thank you.
Correct. Okay, any other discussion? Seeing none, Mr. Winalski, I'll ask for the vote.
Counsel Levy?
Aye.
Counsel Bentley?
Aye.
Counsel Zink? Counsel Nazaro?
Aye.
Counsel Barterman?
Aye.
Chairman LaBranch?
Aye, motion carries 6-0. And now, Mr. Winalski, I guess we're dealing with the warrant articles. What specifically do we need to talk about this evening? I'll let you talk.
Well, I just wanted to raise the fact that we have some opportunities here, and one of which is the bond issue for the development of the McIntosh well. We talked about that since the last year's town meeting where it failed, to put that back on to get the council's concurrence. In addition, we have I believe the same type of opportunity that we would be able to access the state revolving fund, and Sean can talk a little bit about that. The second warrant article deals with the water main from the water tank down to the car wash, provides for the installation of a 16-inch water main, burying the electric and telephone utilities, and making various vault improvements up at the tank, and that's for $995,000, again with the state revolving fund, 20% forgiveness. And the last one, and John will talk a little bit more about that, is gauging the council's interest in wanting to put before the voters a request for funding or bonding the wastewater treatment facility at $12.5 million. Again, the opportunity of 20% state forgiveness on the state revolving fund. I put those forward so that we could have some discussion for the council to either nix something or approve it from there.
When do we need to finalize our votes on this?
It would be we would have the public hearing on the 17th of January, so it would be prior to that, which would be, I'd say, the first week in January we have.
So we could conceivably do this at the workshop and the only reason I say that is, I'm not sure if any councils will be away, but I would obviously like to have a full council vote on this. So if anyone's going to be away on the 21st, please tell me now, because...
January?
No, December.
No.
Okay, so that would be my only suggestion, is that we don't vote on this evening and hopefully do it with a full council, but that's just my suggestion. Councilor Bentley.
Just this isn't exactly how this will read, right? It'll have the impact, it'll have the... No,
I don't think we can put the
Can't put the
impact,
impact.
because especially, you can't put the impact of the
'Cause
tax
we don't
rate
know
in
it
it, but also, most of these don't impact the tax rate, they impact
the user.
Users.
user rate.
Well, I guess that's what I should have, I brought up before that last year after the vote, a lot of people said, even though I thought some were clear, that they were confused, and some voted against things that they wouldn't have even... So, will we have a blurb, we'll have a sentence there that will say, you can't? Really?
No, we can do it in the newspaper, you can do it any other way, but you can't do it.
Handout.
You
Yeah,
can't do it
handout.
on the warrants.
Can I ask a quick?
Okay.
Okay, Councilor Levy?
Okay, my first question real quick is, Article 3, I don't see any dollars associated with it at all. Did I miss something?
Mine has
I gave you
975,000.
There's a new copy.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't get the new copy. Okay. So what's that?
The
975 grand?
1,000.
Okay, so what just came up was, I just got my, it doesn't matter. What just came up was, we can't necessarily talk about the tax impact for sake of,
There is no tax impact on this one.
well,
At the current time, what would happen is...
well, I mean, if they passed, it would be an impact on the people that have to.
On the user,
And a later
yes.
date.
Well, that's how I'm sorry, a fee impact. Would it not be appropriate on the, well, if you can't annotate on the warrant the fee impact, which I'm still unclear on, but just, let's say that's a given, can we at least state on the warrant articles that it will affect only the users? So, well, I mean, that's a fact.
Absolutely.
That's, no,
It
wait a
is,
minute.
but,
No, but that's not
DRA
something that's sort of ambiguous, that.
I agree.
Well, what I'm saying is, I think I would ask if, because that's a fact, at least as it currently stands, when people go in and they're voting on something, and it's only going to impact the people that, I mean, I have a problem personally with voting on something that doesn't even impact me potentially, but that aside, I don't know that, like last time around, that people realize that, and I don't know why that can't be stated. I mean, it's one thing to not state the dollar amount that the fee might go up, but it's another thing to, so anyway, I just thought
It's just what the Attorney General, I agree with you, but we have to check with the Attorney
Well,
General.
I
They have
would-
to
I would do
check on
that.
our language. I agree.
Again, I'm not talking about saying the fee,
I
I'm
agree.
talking about letting people know that it's the users.
Right, this would only impact users.
So they can at least be thoughtful when they're voting, because
I agree.
Vice Chair?
Yeah, I was going to ask about voting on this because all the warrant articles, based on what we've just gone through with the tax rate, I'm of a mind not to vote for any of them. So if I had to vote tonight, I think I would vote against all of them, but,
Well, you'd vote for
You
the
wanna vote the
operating
last
budget. You'd vote for the operating budget, I'm assuming.
maybe. Maybe
Well, you
not.
don't want to go back to a higher number.
Really read it.
No, I know.
Yeah.
But in particular, question about the wastewater treatment one, why are we even talking about putting that forward yet? We're still talking years down the road. I thought we were going to delay this as long as possible.
Well, the conversations we're having with EPA is they want us to come to 8 as soon as possible. So 8 is the number that we're going to have to get to. If we actually, if this approved, this warrant article, we wouldn't be on the fast track just to do the work. We actually wouldn't be, our first loan payment wouldn't be due to 2016, 2017. You're talking 5 years out.
But the
We-
users would be impacted before that, wouldn't they?
It would be a 1% construction loan over that. But I think the big thing that I'm seeing, the reason the wastewater treatment facility is on there is, one, is because we're getting a 20% loan forgiveness for principal and interest from the state. The other reason is to try and, because if you have the warrant article approved, you have the ability to go get other funds, other funding agencies, where if you don't have the bond vote, you don't have that ability. Like rural development, if you don't have a bond vote, they're not going to even do a package for you. So it gives you the ability to get after more funding. It would be up to the council to decide if we have enough funding or if we move forward with it, if you understand what I'm saying. So we know we're going to have to go to an 8. The plant right now is costing us money. I've had to come to you several times for money to get the plant to run. So that is why the wastewater treatment facility is up there. And if the people vote it down, they vote it down. It's up to them.
Are you all set?
Yeah, I'm all set.
I believe this is Councilor Nazaro.
Council Bergeron again. Musical lights. So you say that the plant is costing us money. I mean, you probably don't have the figures right in front of you. But
I
how much
don't.
annually it's costing us?
I mean, for stuff, I mean, like, look at the digester cost us an extra, $30,000 because we had to empty it when not on our own terms. We had to spend $35,000 to fix it. The year before, we had to spend $20,000, to fix a grinder. I mean, stuff that, we're putting money into stuff that isn't going to be there down the road.
But I think given everything that's going on today, and I mean just even the economy as it stands today, to
No,
ask.
I understand.
I mean, $16+ million of warrant articles on the
Mhm.
shoulders of only people that are on town water and sewer.
Well-
Seems a little bit.
Well, let me speak to the water line in the McIntosh well. The money for that is actually going into CIP. Those would not be affecting the rate, the actual construction of those items.
Not affect the rate.
Because those money, we're doing a cash flow out of the CIP, so the money would be coming out of the CIP to make those payments.
So we got $3 million
In
in
the
the CIP for the...
Oh, no, would be making those payments. We would be decreasing the amount that's going into CIP to make those payments.
Assuming that we kept funding the CIP in that same amount.
Well, right now,
If we didn't do it, we wouldn't have to fund the CIP.
There we go.
yeah, but then the money goes
I
in the
understand.
fund
No, I
balance.
understand. Right, yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
mean,
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
it's one of those things where,
I just want to understand it.
yes, yes.
Okay.
So I'm not looking to raise rates to pay for these capital and projects. Not for the water.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
So What would I mean, I guess I would want to know what the impact is on the water user for each of these. I realize we can't put it in the warrant article. But
Yes.
I think that the public needs to know, and we need to
Well,
know.
I mean, there would be a presentation of what this is all going to do and how it's going to be paid for, and so that you can see what's going to happen to the water user.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would just ask Sean that before we vote on it on December 21st, that I'd
Yep.
like to know what that impact is.
Yeah, and I can come in and show you exactly where we're at and where the money's going to be used and what's going to happen, and how that's going to affect the rate. And if it would affect the rate, when it would affect the rate.
I guess that and this isn't for you, and maybe
Yeah.
I shouldn't philosophize up here, but I realize that water users are sort of taxed at a different rate because they happen to be using the water, and I don't know if there's a way to look at, I don't know, I just want to consider the total impact on just the average citizen of Newmarket, not necessarily just water user. So, thank you.
Councilor Zink.
The monies that are in the CIP,
Yes.
where did they come from?
They come from the water users. Everything is from the water users. So the
my-
McIntosh well and the water line is strictly water users.
Okay, so I just want to make sure it's clear that you said it won't impact the rates. Eventually, it will, because that's their bank account.
Yes, but the money's set in for that capital project.
But again, it's the water user's bank account that we're using to spend on those issues.
Yes, you have two different accounts. You have the bank
Right.
account, which is the fund balance for the water department, and then you have the capital improvement account, which is to make improvements on the system. And this money would be coming from the capital improvement fund to make the improvements.
To which the water.
Correct, yes, yes.
Okay, that's my only point. Thanks.
Sean, just one question, and then a statement. We have, in the past, based on CIP meetings, transferred funds from one to the other, to the CIP from the water balance. Is that correct? Do you recall that happening?
No. What I do remember happening is every year a certain amount gets approved. Sometimes what happens is, one year what happened, we did move money from the fund balance over.
$1,000.
Yes,
okay.
yes. Money came and we didn't raise rates because there was money in the fund balance above what, probably should be there. That money got moved to the CIP from the fund balance, and we didn't raise rates, and that money was used for the new village project.
Okay. And also, I understand that there's a little incentive to do this under this particular vote period because of the forgiveness, correct?
Correct. Right
Okay.
now.
And I guess, to make it simple so that I don't talk any longer than I need to, what I would like to know prior to myself voting on this as a counselor is I'd like to know that based on the full dollar value of these projects, what is the expected impact on the user, or, in reference to transferring the funds, and how much we would save, based on the top end, which I know, when you figure these dollars, you figure it on the top end. We hope to obviously come in lower, but based
Exactly.
on that,
Yes.
based on the high end, I would like to know what the impact would be on a individual's bill, if
Okay.
any.
If
And that, if I have that prior to the 21st, potentially I can make a better decision.
Yep, no,
Okay.
that's fine.
Councilor Levy.
I just want to, when you said it doesn't really affect the water users, they're paying for both those funds. All that money's coming from them.
That money's
Yes.
already in their rates now.
It's already in their rates.
Yes.
It's already there.
So I just want to be, it's their
Well, I
money.
mean,
You make it sound like it's, but it is. It's all
it
their
is
money.
coming from them, but the whole goal of the water and sewer department is to make it so that we have small increases, that we're able to maintain and upgrade the system so it's there for the future.
I just wanted to clarify that
Yeah, no, I
point.
just want to say what we're doing, and we're trying to make it sustainable so that people aren't seeing these large increases. And that's the main goal.
And then,
to keep up with it.
then just real briefly, if it doesn't get voted in,
Yes.
what then?
Then it doesn't get done.
Okay, so the voters say no.
Yeah.
The EPA says yes. That's
Okay.
provided there's no lawsuit and it doesn't get forced.
All right, so you're talking the wastewater plant now. Okay,
Yeah,
right,
I'm just
okay.
trying to get a sense of,
Yeah.
we're talking about, so what is the end game?
What could happen if we don't approve this wastewater treatment plant? Our comment period is due next week, is due the end of next week. It depends on when our draft permit becomes our permit. If we cannot come to an agreement with the EPA and we stalemate and don't do anything, they're going to set up a compliance schedule to give us, say, you need to start doing something by such and such, or we're going to start fining you.
And how would that work, just so we all understand it? Would the whole town be paying the fine? How does that work, Sean?
I believe it would be to the sewer users. But I'm not sure. I'd
These are
have to-
things
I'd
that I
have to find
think,
the research on that.
first of all, we don't know that this isn't going to be litigated.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
So this isn't, not necessarily a fait accompli. It may be, but to my knowledge, it is not at this point.
Yeah.
So I understand, the quest to stay on top of things, but I'm just asking if it doesn't get passed, because people are going to be sitting there going, maybe I don't want to do this. So I think it's important to get all the information out to the users before we get all this, data to start putting warrant articles together, so everybody knows what the deal is, what the implications are, and potentially, what the odds of this getting stalled with a litigation, and just so everybody has enough to make logical votes. Okay, that's just my suggestion.
Yeah.
Because if we don't do that, I think we're making a big mistake this time. So, thank you.
Councilor Zink? I'm not trying to make the reporting more complex, but the impact on the water user or the wastewater treatment plant user is going to be significantly impacted by the term of the bond.
Correct.
And the term of the bond is going to be made here?
The term of the bond by the state revolving loan program is the longest bond you can get is 20 years.
Okay. So, but you could get something less?
You could get something less.
Right. Okay, so I just want to make sure that term of the bond is understood by everyone, because we can make the problems minimized by simply extending the bond out
I think.
further. So if it is 20 years, and that's what it is, fine. And then people can understand it.
I have the bond schedules and all that I can supply with you guys.
Say 1%?
That is the bridge loan till you get to the end loan. That's the construction loan. The loan.
It's a 20-year bond.
It just went up from 2.86 to 3.1.
Okay.
Councilor Nazaro?
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems moot, but I think it's important because it was said like maybe 3-4 minutes ago. But, and I understand where you were coming from when you said that the mission of the water department is to make the smallest increases so that the taxpayer, the water user, isn't feeling the major impact. But I think it's important to frame it more as the mission of the water department is to provide the highest quality product at the lowest possible price.
Correct.
Not to,
We're
which I
doing-
know, I
no,
know
we're
you
doing
think
that,
that way.
yeah.
I just want to make sure that you're not.
Yeah, no.
So the increases should only come if we're looking at the quality's going to come down, or the quality's going to be below where, like, is satisfactory for us to be drinking as citizens.
Well, I mean, for example, the water line going up to the tank, we're actually improving the electrical service up to the tank, for the Verizon and those people, so that we can maintain, we get about $61,000 in revenues, which keeps people's water rates down from that. And the water line, not the water line, the electrical service up there needs to be improved to get that, to keep that money coming.
So I just want to make sure your quote wasn't taken out of context.
No, it's not.
Because I definitely know the way you think about this.
Yeah, I do not like to raise water and sewer rates. I do not like to do it.
Thanks, Sean.
Okay, any other questions? All right, then, Sean, if you can get the information out as quick as possible to the council, and then we'll further discuss this on the 21st and potentially, you know, approve or disapprove or whatever.
You can have that.
Okay? Thank you, Sean.
Thank you, Sean, obviously.
Okay, next up is, which should take a minute and a half. Sorry.
Famous last words.
Sorry. Review of boiler specification and attic insulation for Town Hall, which I believe, Mr. Winowski, you have provided that information?
Yes.
Okay. I guess my question is, this was asked by the council to receive, so rather than Mr. Winowski going into a long discussion, I'll open it up for discussion or comments, and Councilor Levy.
Realizing we got this, but it didn't really answer the question that I've been asking. What I would like to know is, what is the present R rating in our attic or our ceiling now in the town hall? So we compare it to the R38 rating of one of these two options. And I want to know what the expected dollar savings is so we can make a logical decision. And as far as the efficiency of the boiler being 79 versus 94 for propane, 79 being oil, the best I could deduce getting this and trying to calculate it with everything that's been going on is 500 gallons of oil versus is I guess equivalent roughly to 700 gallons of propane because of the more BTU in oil. So if someone could please do the calculation of the cost, right now, the price I got from Eastern Propane was $369.9 for oil. I got $215.5 for propane. I tried to get them to get me the final calculation, but they just couldn't get it to me on time, so it's really not their job anyway. But somebody needs to run the number on 79% for oil and 94% on propane because of the BTU difference. Then we can make a decision as to whether or not $67,000 makes any sense. And the same with the R rating for the window, for the ceiling in the town hall.
Mr. Winowski?
I can tell you that upstairs in the attic area,
Yep.
there is really no insulation at all. There's a very, I don't know who put it up there, but somebody many, many years ago put up a strip of insulation, and when I stuck my head up there one day, it's about this thick, and there's really nothing but a lot of dust.
Okay. Well, in the spirit of not doing this,
Yep.
just have somebody put a meter up there, tell us what the R rating is. There's some R rating up there. And then they need to determine what the difference is between 38 and whatever it is, because it isn't zero. That I can assure you.
Right.
And then we can make a logical decision, I think, at the council level. The highest I've seen for an R rating on insulation's around 52. That would be for foam. Al can probably confirm that, but it's 50's getting up there. So 38, I guess, is a lot better than what we have, but it would be, you know, I think the $4,000 seems reasonable. But I'd just like to know, and I definitely want to know about the efficiency, and then if you could, while you're doing it, I think Councilor LaBranch asked about the maintenance. We should know the maintenance. We should know what the installation is going to be. I think there were some things that weren't included, maybe I'm wrong, but we should get a number on all the, you know, put it all together with the tanks. We only going to need one 1,000 tank?
That's what John had pulled, just asked him to get a price on a 1,000-gallon tank. It'd be double that.
Oh, well, I'm just asking that somebody should tell us how many we're going to need, because that's going to be part of the budget. So if we're going to do this, we really need to...
Pull it all together.
Thank you.
Councilor Nazaro?
Mine's going to be a much simpler question. To me, all I really want to know about this is when the break-even point is. Like, how many months, based on the startup cost and the whatever the ongoing costs are going to be, at what point will we start seeing savings to the taxpayers as opposed to the expenditure that's coming out here. And if it's measured in months as opposed to years, then I'm fine. If it's measured in years as opposed to months, then.
Dozens of years.
Yeah, then we're probably not in a good place for it, especially right now. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I think months
Vice
is gonna
Chair?
be a little limited.
I agree with Councilor Nazaro. I mean, what Councilor Levy's looking for, you need to make the decision as far as the cost-benefit analysis, so,
You can't do what he's asking for
without
without
that.
this.
No, exactly. I think we need to get
Yeah.
that, and so with that, I suggest we move on to the next topic.
Okay, I see no further lights, so item 5 is town council to consider appointments to committees, commissions. Vice Chair.
I make a motion that we appoint Michael Provo to the NCDC for a term that expires in 2014.
Second.
Discussion, Councilor Bentley?
I was going to make the motion.
Councilor Levy?
Just one question. Can anybody else sign up to be on that NCDC? It looks like, they're just re-upping them, which is fine, but does that go to, do other people know that there's been a vacancy, and can they, or is this all just sort of within the NCDC?
Mr. Renowski?
It's been on the marquee, and it was on the town's website
Okay.
for anybody that wanted to sign up.
And there was only one sign-up?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr.
Just-
Provost.
Okay, just thought to ask.
But we did put it out there.
Okay, any other discussion? The motion was made by Vice Chair. Who did the second? Councilor Bentley made the second. So with that, I'll ask Mr. Winalski for the vote, please.
Council Levy?
Aye.
Council Bentley?
Aye.
Council Zink? Council Nazaro? Aye. Chairman Bodeman?
Aye. Did you say chairman?
And Chairman LeBranch.
Aye. Motion carries 6-0. Switch.
No.
Pleasure. Okay, old new business, or old business, then new business. Councilor Levy.
I just have a request from some constituents that have asked me to request from Ed, or the town manager, Ed Winowski, correspondence from DOT regarding the bridge at the intersection of 108. And I think at one of the Black Bear meetings, it's all public information, Mike.
No, I'm, which bridge?
The new road, the bridge near
Oh.
108 intersection. Did
I
I not
thought
say
that
that right?
was out there.
DOT bridge, regarding the intersection of 108.
Can we put that up on the website? Would that make it?
That's what I was going to do.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to finish what I was going to ask us, at the last meeting, there was a letter that was written, I think you forwarded it to Dave Bird, and a few people called me and they just asked, what you've received, and I think, between this year would be fine, just for 2000, I think we're still in 11 calendar year, so, just so people can, see, and I think the council, by the way, should be CC'd on that, because I think you gave it a Black Bear, but I don't think I haven't seen any of the documentation, so that is what I would like. Do I have to make a motion for that, or can we just get it?
No, I'll put it in your box tomorrow.
Thank you. I think the whole council should see it,
Yes.
because, we're talking about it, and people are asking about it, so.
Okay. Vice Chair?
Yeah, to continue on that, Councilor Levy jogged my memory. I got a call from Bill Archeri looking to see the estimate for the new road, the DOT estimate.
That's what I think
That's what.
Councilor Levy was talking about.
Okay, so that's going to go on to the website?
Yes.
Okay.
If you can put all of the documentation, it might be easier, since it is a Black Bear issue, to put it all under the Black Bear
Yeah.
headings,
Yep.
and they can go and find it there.
Excellent.
Because at this point, I don't think the council really has
Yeah, there can't be that much.
as much to do with it, so, okay.
Thank you.
Any other old business? New business? Councilor Zink?
Several individuals that I've talked to over the past couple weeks have indicated that they haven't been as made aware of things like meetings as they would like to have been made aware. And I indicated to them that, you know, we publish it on the marquee and it's on our website. And they indicated that not all people have access to both. And made a suggestion that we consider sending to residents our monthly calendar of events. And I indicated that obviously it would be expensive, you know, expensive to do so, but I also told them that I would bring it up this evening because apparently there are a number of residents who would benefit from receiving the calendar in their mailbox at home so that they could attend meetings. So I bring it up simply as a request on their part.
Okay, just to add on to other locations where this is available, it's also available on the website.
I mentioned that.
You mentioned the website? Okay. Channel 13, Town Hall, and I believe the post office. So,
Library also?
I don't think they do the
No,
library.
Start including the library, since a lot of people go there.
So there's 4 different locations for that. And obviously, I mean, there are specific boards, like the school board generally meets first and third Thursday of the month. Council meets first and third Wednesday of the month. The rest of the committees, planning board is usually the second Tuesday. So, I mean, they're kind of consistent. If there isn't, planning board is not required to meet if they have nothing to meet about, to my knowledge. I mean, they're not going to just meet for no reason. We are required to meet first and third, and I believe the school is required to meet first and third, but other boards are as businesses deemed necessary. So, Councilor Levy.
I don't know if that's financially feasible. You know, I think it's great, but I don't know. But I do, along that line, have a suggestion that instead of maybe running some of the movies that we enjoy so much on Channel 13, maybe they could repeat more of our meetings. Because there's a fair amount of time, you know, that other things are on. I mean, I think the Heritage Festival's fine. I think, you know, Old Home Week is fine. But I do think that, I don't know, you know, what it would require, but if they ran a loop of all the meetings, you know, each day, I think it would be a much, I don't know the cost associated with it. I don't know if you can do it on an auto loop. But if it isn't a big cost, I think it would be a heck of a lot more beneficial than seeing some of these movies. It's hard, you know, it's hard to, a lot of these people don't have computers that I talk to, and watching the, you know, if they don't catch that meeting, they don't see it for another 2 days, is you can't really go into your schedule on Comcast and see when the next council meeting is. You know, we run the little blurb, but it's, I'm just saying, you know, I think running a loop of the meetings would be a lot more benefit. That's why we have 13, so. I'd like to respond to it.
I was just going to say that one of the things that Chris does, who operates the cameras and everything, this meeting will run from now till the next meeting. And it pretty much runs on a basis that every day it shows up at different times. Same thing with any other meetings, they continually run. We can ask them to make sure that it runs in the morning, the night, and the evening.
I just think running it all, I mean, I don't see any benefit to these movies and some of the other stuff.
Well, and one of the things he does is there's a schedule on Channel 13 that, you know, you look at, and it tells you the council meeting will air at 5 o'clock, and then the planning board meeting will air at 7 o'clock, and depending on the length of the meeting, he fits them in so people can get to see them at different times. I don't know if there's a benefit to running them late at night.
I've tried, you know, if you don't, unfortunately, Comcast doesn't say council, you know, you can't even DVR the dang thing unless you know exactly when it's coming on. So I'm just suggesting that, you know, we have umpteen meetings a month. If you just ran them constantly, I think people would have a better idea what's going on. You know, and I watched a lot of empty time during these.
I'll speak with Chris and see about increasing the availability.
I think it would be good for everybody.
Councilor Bentley?
Another alternative is just use every other resource. You know, maybe how much would it be to get the monthly calendar, a copy of the senior center, a copy of the, you know, the churches have church groups that do socials downstairs. Would Jen put one at Riverworks? Would Jeremy put one at Jeremy's? I almost guarantee if we asked them to, you know, they would, so that's another
Yeah.
cheap, fairly easy alternative. I agree, when people ask, you need to look into it. If someone said it, then it happened, but, you know, in light of not doing stamps and mailings and costs, there's other ways to do it, do a mass, you know, a mass handout. Anyway, just an idea.
Vice Chair?
I was just going to say what Council Bentley said with one addition is, a lot of people go to the dump. You could have them at the dump. When they pull in and get checked in, they could be handed a calendar.
Maybe we can identify 20 places that we could
Yep.
put these things and just make it, you know, the last day of the month, go out with the following month's calendar. Okay. Anyone else got any new business? I have just two things, I'll be real quick. First thing is, I've received some communications from Adam Schrader, in reference to the council's decision on Church Street.
Yes.
The one-way. And he's requested to be able to come in and speak, and if the council is good with it, I'll open it up for him at the workshops, so he can be like first on the agenda, come in and say what he has to say, and go from that point, to give him an opportunity. Apparently, he was not aware that we were going to be discussing it at the last meeting, so if we can do that, that would take care of that. Okay. And the only other thing, and Council Bentley reminded me, I just wanted to put a big thank you out to Jeremy, because he did put on the Thanksgiving Day feed. I did take a ride up there to see what was going on, and quite honestly, I don't think the community center is going to be big enough for him next year. He does a nice job. He not only feeds the people, but he also ends up giving a lot of them people gift cards to local grocery stores and stuff like that. So this is an individual that the town should be grateful we've got. And hopefully he lives in Newmarket. Maybe he can be on one of these boards sometime soon.
Also, that the Housing Authority lent a hand also. They lent a stove to cook.
Yes,
So
I mean,
thank them.
there were a lot of volunteers, and the volunteers that were there should not be forgotten either, because they obviously gave up their Thanksgiving to be up there to cook for these other people. And it was a pretty good turnout from what I saw. So with that, if no one else has anything else, we do have a non-public this evening. So I will look for a motion to go into non-public.
Make a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A
Thanks for coming.
3, subparagraph 2, paragraph C.
Is there a second? Second. Discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll wait till